Finance and Investment Committee. Our first order of business is public comments, since we do not have meetings tonight. And we had one person sign up, Oliver Goddard. Oliver, if you're here, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and your address.
Didn't expect to be starting so soon. I apologize. Good evening. My name is Oliver Goddard. First of all, I want to say thank you. The proposal to raise the starting salary to just over $60,000 for certified RCSO deputies and to recognize lateral experience up to step 10, they're both real steps towards progress. They show that this commission understands that we're in a competitive hiring battle across Middle Tennessee. But we can't stop there, because the conversation isn't just about recruitment. It's about retention. It's about keeping the kind of deputies who build trust. They solve crimes with increasing skill and stay through the tough years. Let's look at where we stand today. Murfreesboro Police starts uncertified police officers at just over $65,000, Smyrna at $64,500, and the Rutherford County's proposed start after certification still lags behind. And that gap only grows with time. Rutherford County offers a 1.75% annual step raise. Murfreesboro gives 2.5%, and Smyrna averages 3%. It adds up quickly, so this is my napkin math. After 10 years, a Rutherford County deputy would make about $71,842, Murfreesboro $84,006, and then Smyrna somewhere between over $80,000. That's a gap of up to $15,000 a year, and that's every year. Our deputies are proud to serve this county, but they also have families, bills, and a future to build. When other agencies offer better pay, similar shifts, and increasingly better benefits, we don't just risk losing personnel, we risk losing our best. There was a time when Rutherford County offered a more appealing schedule or health care plan, but those days are behind us, and now we need to compete in other ways. In regards to the cost of living, shouldn't the people policing us in Rutherford County also be able to live here comfortably? Shouldn't our deputies be able to raise their families in the same community that they protect? If we want local policing, if we want deputies with roots here in our community, we need to make the salary livable right here in our county. So here's what I respectfully ask you to consider. Raise the starting pay to match, not just approach the top paying agencies. Please stop excluding high earners from pay studies. They are not outliers, they're our competition. Keep step increases above inflation. If we can't lead today, at least let's promise the deputies they won't fall behind tomorrow. Lastly, make leadership worthwhile. Right now, stepping into a supervision role comes with more stress but not enough money. Let's change that. This commission's already shown leadership. Let's keep moving forward and let's set the standard. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your continued support of those who protect Rutherford County.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
We will be going through the schools budget first. We'll call them up in just a moment. Just kind of give you a quick overview. We do have some leftover items, and most of those will be caught up on number 4. But at the end of the day, we're going to need to have a budget ready for publication, and I want to keep our committee idea on making that happen. All right. Since we do not have minutes at this time, we're going to call on the school board representative, and we'll go to item 2, Rutherford County Schools 25-26 budget review as necessary. And first is the Education Capital Projects Fund 171. Welcome.
Chairman, can we call the roll for the minutes?
I'm sorry, yes, let's do.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Here.
Commissioner Harris? Here. Commissioner Irvin?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Here. Commissioner Piercy? Here. Commissioner P.
Here. President accounted for. Dr. Sullivan.
On Tuesday night, the Budget Committee asked for a little bit more time on Fund 177, our educational capital projects. This has an estimated revenue and expenditures of $19,344,516, and then you were provided a estimation of what we prioritize at this moment based on the needs that we see for those projects. Those are the ones that are highlighted in yellow on those forms, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Irvin, you're recognized.
Thank you. Quick question. How much fluctuation usually is there between what you're thinking about and what you actually?
Very little. The only time there'd be fluctuation is if a project comes in overbid or underbid to where we had to move accounts or move projects because of that, or if we have an emergency that comes in. Those are the times that you would have fluctuation.
Thank you. I have
Yep.
no more questions.
Any other questions from the committee? I notice we've got several of our other commissioners who are not on budget here, and they're also welcome to ask any questions they have for the director. Do I see any conversation? Hearing none, I'm open for a motion on the capital projects 171 fund. 170, I thought it was one, yes. You're correct, I'm sorry. Can't read my own writing here. Do I hear a motion to approve or change?
Second.
Motion to approve.
Second to approve.
All right. And a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Serrano,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson. Yes. Commissioner Piercy. Yes. Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. All right, please continue.
Thank you all very much. Next, we have Fund 141, and one of the big ones that we were waiting on was an update on our bus transportation. Pleased to announce our transportation, and in partnership, of course, with our contractors, we, as of 4:30 at the end of the day today, had 300 and, let me make sure I get it right, it was 316 or 317? Give me just a second so that I give you the exact right number. 317 of 333 contracts from the previous year signed. And so that is in really good shape to where we normally are. Of course, you still expect some type of natural attrition throughout if people decide not to fill that after they have signed a contract. That is an individual business owner's decision. But with the threshold our school board placed, we had to have more than 35 routes unsigned by the end of the day today to purchase buses, and that we did not meet that threshold, so luckily we will not be going into the bus business. So happy to report that, and so our transportation budget as presented and everything else is as presented without any changes from Tuesday night. Happy to answer any other questions on 141.
Commissioner Irvin.
Yes. Could you, it's Fund 141, that's where we are. 47401, I noticed that it's education, it's a federal amount, and it's basically going away. And I have a couple questions kind of tied to this. Okay, one, you need some help finding it?
Yes, which are you on?
It's on page 405 of your expenditures.
We don't have that actual.
Give him your account number.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. It's 47401. Sorry, you're right. That's revenue. My apologies. My apologies.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
revenue. Okay, sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying.
Yes.
My apologies.
No problem.
So there's revenue coming in, and is that, what's it for?
That revenue, you want to go? Yeah, go for it.
So ESSER 3 was the state, our federal money that came in probably 3 to 4 years ago. It's no longer, the reason why it's zero is because we're no longer receiving revenue. This is the last year of the grant, so we are finishing it off this year, so there will be no more additional revenue from there coming in.
Okay, and so is there anything that the county is now going to have to pick up? Or is that, or I guess, once I understand exactly what it was for, then what's the implications going forward? You just indicated we don't have to, but I just want to make sure we're
Yep.
not having to make up some money here.
No, the only federal position that is on a growth position is the 3 through 5 Science and Social Studies Specialist that's listed, and that is out of Title II, which is a different fund that's transferring from general purpose, or from federal into general purpose. That's not in the ESSER funds. These were additional ESSER funds that were released from leftover across the state, and we used them to be able to purchase the first round of laptops for the high school computers this year.
And then a broader question, okay, there's a lot going on at the federal level in terms of grants, in terms
Yes.
of pass-throughs, things along those lines. Have you done kind of an analysis? Are you aware of anything? And in particular, is there anything that we need to be aware of? Because I like to look not only at this year, but out a year or two. Is there anything we need to be aware of going forward that we need to be planning for now, you know, of any material significance?
Right. Great question. Title I in special education are our largest federal funding. If removed, everything that we are hearing from the State Department is that would be reallocated to different lines, and so that funding actually, Tennessee, and you can probably talk to it better, is with Title I supposed to get more funding than it did in the previous year, and so not necessarily worried about losing Title I funding. The areas that we've heard that may lose funding is Title II, which is professional development, and so that we don't have positions necessarily anymore in that line. And the other one is Title III, which is English as a second language and some of your other things there. And so those would be your areas that we would have to look at moving. Those are the two that we're most concerned, but those are also some of our smallest areas that we have.
And thank you.
Yep.
And I want to open the door very briefly in terms of, can you, just because it's such a large number, the almost $34 million for the bus contracts, can you give us kind of a build-up in terms of what that number is made up of?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that we can,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
my constituents have asked,
Yep.
I'd like just kind of a basic understanding of this is what went into that number.
Yeah, the largest portion of that, so it's the overall total transportation, so I'm going to count 72,710 for everyone following around. You have, the entire account is $36.9 million. Contracts with vehicle owners is $33.6 million of that. And this current year, it is budgeted at $27 million. And so all that we did, and the large increase that you see, is multiply our $27 million times 17% and then add $4,000 to each contractor we have to be able to get to that additional $7 million roughly, or $6.5 million to get to that additional amount in line 315. The other things that you have supervisors, attendants, which are your bus aides, and then other salaries and wages come up to about $1.6 million for the staffing for transportation. You have Social Security, pensions, medical insurance come up to about another $500,000. We have contracts with private agencies. Sometimes we have students who need specialized transportation and we have to contract with one or two different private companies to provide. That's a $200,000 line. Other contracted services is our routing company that we use. And then you have vehicle and equipment insurance, $87,000, staff development, $20,000, other charges just various for $40,000, administrative equipment's $10,000, and then transportation equipment, $227,000. And so that's what gives you your 36.9, but the biggest bulk is 30.6 is the contracts with vehicle owners, which is our contracts with our bus contractors.
And that was simply X times one.
X
One
times
plus one.
0.17 plus
Yeah.
4,000 per contractor.
Plus 4,000 per contractor.
Yep.
We also put $850,000 for additional new routes for Plainview and some other additional routes in case upgrades.
Yep. Yeah, Poplar Hill. So our new elementary school needed $800,000 for new routes.
Any other? Ms. Oliver, you're recognized.
Yes, I do have a question regarding your transportation equipment, because you had budgeted $50,000 and then it's jumped to 434, is that correct? So I was curious about your transportation equipment. What falls under there?
Give me just a second. Mr. Lee, do you have that by chance? Yeah, I'd have to pull it too. Give me just a second. You know, but
Commissioner Oliver, what line item is that? Do you have it with you?
72, 710, 729.
yeah. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out what exactly that number is. What the increase is for. GPS and cameras for new buses. And routing for the new buses.
The routing for new buses there,
Yep.
and then you said routing was somewhere else up here in the budget.
Yeah, that's what we use for our software that we do to actually route the buses. These are the software that actually, the equipment that goes on the buses. Because we pay for the replacements when things go down.
Okay. And tell me again how many bus routes you have?
333 today.
That's how many's budget.
And that includes the new schools? Okay, because I asked that question the other night, and I was told, yes, that was included.
The money is included. The 333, just to clarify, what we put into our board motion to be able to purchase buses was based on this year's number. So 333 was based on this year's number. We had to have more than 35 routes remaining to be able to purchase buses. Included in this number in our budget includes 8 to 10 new routes. We're not finished routing yet. So we'll finish routing as the school year concludes, and then we route throughout the summer.
So you're looking at 345?
340-ish.
And you're saying that money is not included in
No,
this?
it's included.
It is?
Yes, it's included.
I'm
Yes.
seeing one head shake one way, one head shake. Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
included in the 315 line item contracts with vehicle owners.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Piercy.
I know you've give the drivers, contractors, the $4,000 stifling check for this year. What are your plans for the future? Are you
same.
going to try to take the insurance back or just keep passing the money on?
That RFP we requested it from the mayor's office, who then went to risk management. And so risk management, if the RFP comes back and that's allowed, then that'll be something that risk management, and then ultimately, I guess, the county commission can decide on. But until there's a decision on the liability insurance, the 4,000 will continue. We have it budgeted to be able, in our numbers, to be able to continue. But if there's a solution that allows liability insurance to be included, that'd be a risk management decision.
So it won't be y'all's decision to
Correct.
make? It'll be the county's decision?
Correct. Because the county carries the insurance.
One other question I have. The money that you were going to have to move to buy the buses, the $2.1 million,
Yes.
what becomes of that money now?
It's in the contracts with vehicle owners. We don't need it now because it is going to be used to fill those contracts with vehicles. There's no open routes. Well, there's still 16 open routes,
Yes.
but there's not 35 open routes.
Where will that $2.1 million be spent now?
It'll be spent in that line item because those
That
routes are
line
not open.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Irvin.
Thank you. Okay, so just to be really clear, there's nothing in this budget for the purchase of new buses.
Correct.
And can you, a couple ways to do it. I thought the lawyers may be here. I've gotten several calls the last couple days. Is this legal?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's two aspects to that. One is confirming the methodology that we really don't have to have a competitively bid RFP.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of the first question I'm getting. And the second one is it, you have a multi-year bus contract, and can it be signed yesterday and today by you and, without county commission approval.
Yep. Nick, would you mind, where is Nick? Would you mind coming up here for those? We
Yeah,
talked about.
I've asked our attorney to attend tonight in anticipation of some questions, so
Yeah.
welcome, Nick.
So there's two basic questions. I think you probably got them. Okay. Do we need an RFP, a competitively bid RFP, number one? And number two, the director of schools has been signing contracts, wanting to make sure that's completely legal. Some folks have cited to me, I don't know, you're the county attorney, so I just want some assurance before we move forward that methodology is accurate, works, hunky-dory, no liability to the county, that kind of stuff.
Right. Happy to address those. So as to the first question, there is statutory support and case law support for the notion that you do not have to competitively bid the bus contract. I have looked into it, and the statutes over the powers and duties of the school board allow them to make any sort of bus contract that they would like to, and there's actually case law out there all the way up to the Supreme Court that affirms that notion, that competitive bid process with respect to the selection of a bus contractor is not required. So that's number one. Number two, historically, the county commission has not approved actual contracts and expenditures that are made by the county commission. The role of the county commission in its interaction with the school board on these particular matters is that you fund their budget. So that's what the process is you're going through now. How they spend that money once funded is in the discretion of the school board. And so also would note that we do have a purchasing act here in the county that is applicable to the purchases by the county commission through its purchasing committee. That is not applicable expressly by its terms to the school board. So no, county commission approval is not required in order to authorize the director of the schools to sign this type of contract.
Did these contracts have a provision in case there had been a problem? I'm sorry? If there had been an issue, the number hadn't been reached, would there have been a provision that said the contracts are no longer applicable or void or whatever?
Oh, I see. Well, the contract's very long. I don't recall if there's a specific provision in there as you state, but under common law contract principles, generally, if for whatever reason it turns out that there is an issue with the contract where it'd be considered void against public policy, it is a nullity by operation of law. So you wouldn't need a contractual provision to state that.
And what if any action does the school board have to, okay, what I'm hearing is county commission, we're good, no liability. What does the school board have to do? I'm just trying to close the loop.
Yeah, to do what?
Approve it,
Do you want to step into that one?
They approved the contract on May 15th, and then the chairman, for any time that a contract changes, signs the contract as well.
Any other questions from the committee? Commissioner Oliver.
I have one more question. 72,510 under fiscal services, where you had budgeted zero for other salaries and wages, and then now this year you're looking at $347,378. What falls under there?
As I stated on Tuesday night, that's where we put our benefit specialists, because my department assumed the benefits in the school district. So they moved from the HR line item, which is the next account number, the 72,520. It moved from that line item up into the account of mine in 189. So that is all benefits. So that last year, or this current year that we're in, they were budgeted in 72,520, 189. And then this upcoming budget, we had to move them into my line item.
So that's an individual salary and wages?
That's not an individual salary. That's six or seven different salaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you. Just really quick, one quick follow-up. We talked mostly on transportation. I account variances spreadsheet that you put together, Dr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Deals with transportation as it relates to $6.7 million increase.
Correct.
And the explanation is pretty much deals exclusively with the new bus contract.
Correct.
And the spend it that you were talking about as it
Correct.
relates to that. So that's basically what most all of it is.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we've been talking about tonight or already tonight, the $6.7 million increase. And most of it is going toward the bus contract and also the spend it that relates to that.
Correct. And also, so we will receive roughly $25 million additionally in TISA. Part of that goes to charter schools, roughly $6 million. Roughly $10 million then goes to your teacher required raises, and then almost $7 million goes to transportation. So the rest of the district runs off of about $3 million. And so that is why I mentioned on Tuesday night, there's about a 0.3 or 0.4% variance for us to move things around this year. So it is as tight as it can be.
Any more questions for the Director? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve the 141 budget.
Second.
In the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our next item are some items that were forwarded from the Public Safety Committee. The first is under item A, is employee pay increases of $8.2 million. I think Commissioner Beverly wanted to do a presentation on that. Am I correct? If you'd like to address this, that'd be fine. Michael, go ahead.
While Commissioner Beverly's coming up, the PowerPoint is in front of you, but we also put it should be on your iPads tonight if you wanted to be able to look at it closer. That way, if you didn't have to look all the way up at the screen, it should be the other item on your iPad tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is going to have a little historical context for some of you that are in the crowd that were not aware of what we've been looking at since about November of 2024 for this budget year. So for the background, every year employees gain a step on the pay scale subject to budget approval. We've had a high attrition rate, so we're looking at what market factors are changing and how can we address this to examine our compensation strategy. Essentially, we've got to change our approach. The type of employees that we're recruiting, both in the county, especially in emergency services, has changed with a newer generation. Our mid-year adjustment in January of 2025, the County Commission considered a 4% adjustment. Mayor Carr requested additional funds, and we adopted about a 2.25% adjustment. In addition to in April of 2025, the Public Safety Committee passed along a motion asking the Budget Committee to look at the cost of a few different options. One was adopting a longevity pay scale proposal, increasing our longevity from $25 a year to $100 a year. We wanted to evaluate the cost of a market study adjustment based on the 2025 or January of 2025 salary study. Consider the experience recognition increasing from 5 years to 10 years, and that was especially important when recruiting certified firefighters, deputies, or EMS or paramedic staff to come over and compensate them for their experience. We wanted to look at amending the potential law enforcement pay table, and then also implementing the military service retirement credit for our employees. Right now, we do pay $25 per year of service. After a three-year vesting period, the employee is eligible. Our longevity increase would cost us about $800,000 a year to move from up to $100 per year up from the $25. Currently, we recognize up to 5 years of relative experience when assigning a step on the pay scale. That doesn't always translate directly to a step 5, but we do account for that in our HR department. What we're looking at, though, is increasing that from 5 to 10 years. That will cost us about $1.5 million. And in January of 2025, a compensation study was done by Rutherford County to attain a 50th percentile target. And I said this in budget, and I want to commend Mayor Carr again. He included that in his budget to get us to the 50th percentile. And to use a football analogy of what I'm familiar with, we're at first and goal, but we're not there yet. We have 10 more yards before we can get to mission accomplished. The 70th percentile needs to be a target because that is what our competitors are doing. We will fall short if we don't adopt a 70th percentile target. Some case studies to back that up. You'll see in green is the Rutherford County Detention Deputy compensation in comparison to other area entities. Hamilton County is included. They're alike with us in population base along with size of the county and employee base. But you'll see we included Davidson, Montgomery, Sumner, Williamson, and Wilson County in there because these are the counties we are competing with to retain employees. An employee, when they are in a field, such as emergency services, are not looking at size or comparable call volume. They're going to say, I want an hour commute. Here's all the departments within 1 hour commute. What are they going to offer me? That's what we have to compete with. Booking deputy compensation. You can see we're close to the top, but Montgomery County is higher and Hamilton County is higher. Patrol deputy compensation. There's a lot of entities on here. You'll see Rutherford County falls somewhat in the middle. But what's unique is in the red are the Rutherford County law enforcement agencies in this county. We're the lowest paid county law enforcement agency right now. And I can tell you from over a decade in law enforcement, I have trained police officers. They go to the academy, and within 3 months, they leave a department for better compensation. If you do not want our first responder departments to become the training wheels of Middle Tennessee, we have to make an investment. Otherwise, we will lose them and be in a constant state of training, retraining, wearing out our training officers, and spending a whole lot of investment funds trying to fill positions for them to have a high turnover rate.
Commissioner Beverly, is this a starting rate or an average? Or
Starting rate. Okay. Yes, starting rate. And it's worth noting in here, Murfreesboro Police, the city of Murfreesboro just raised their salary 6% for this upcoming fiscal year. They see the need to remain competitive. And I've reached out to them out of curiosity as, what's the benefit have you seen from this? They canceled a recruit class because they didn't need to hire anybody for their fire department. Their police department is close to being fully staffed. Certified law enforcement officers are flocking over to their department to go work for them, and in turn it lowers their training time in the field because they're already certified. They don't have to send them to an academy, and they're welcoming them with open arms. And if you look on the screen here, you'll see various departments' career trajectories with what they would make in the law enforcement side, and then in bold is Rutherford County. Our firefighter compensation. Our firefighters are the lowest paid fire department in Rutherford County. And when you compare that to area entities that we compete with, we're fourth from the bottom. In red, you'll see Rutherford County. We have to make a change there. And again, Murfreesboro just adjusted theirs by 6%. Paramedics, we're second from the bottom, although I did make a mistake. Sumner County needs to be left off at top. The Sumner County reflecting $63,658 is accurate. To put it in summation, a 5-year Rutherford County Sheriff's Deputy will back up a Murfreesboro police officer on a traffic stop, but the pay difference at the time of this report was $17,000. It is now closer to $18,000. Same experience, same job, 2 different departments. I can tell you, most guys won't turn their head for a small increase, but you will lose first responders for almost a $20,000 a year pay difference. So how much will this cost? Longevity increase is going to be $800,000. Experience recognition would be $1.5 million. The 50th percentile target, it's already in the budget. The military service retirement credit, we're not prepared to give a dollar amount on that right now. We don't know. But what's next? If we fail to act, other entities are going to continue to outpace us. We're going to become the training wheels of every department, and this will leave us in a perpetual state of hiring and training with no end in sight. So I got curious. The Franklin Police Department did a study just to say, how much does it cost to hire a law enforcement officer? $100,000. I don't know where that translates to the fire department and to EMS, but it's got to be close. And when it gets that close, we're asking for an investment. If we don't act, we're going to be spending it in a different manner. So what could we ask the Budget Committee to do? We wanted to look at adjusting starting salaries for Patrol 2 certified at a Step 2. Now keep in mind, once they graduate the academy, they move to Patrol 2, Step 2, at $60,024, booking and detention to $52,156, firefighter certified to $58,630, and then paramedic to just over $68,000. All employees within that department receive a proportional increase, but the total cost to move to that 70th percentile is $5.9 million. That's one of many options. The Public Safety Committee wanted to present you essentially an a la carte option of how do we want to address our compensation issues. So with that, I'll answer any questions and see where we can get this discussion to lead us.
Well, I don't see anybody. Commissioner Irvin, go ahead.
I'll just ask a question or two. Is that 8.2 cash compensation, or is that total compensation number? So, for example, if that's a cash compensation and you add on top of that other compensation, you're probably around what, 10, 11, 12 million?
Correct. I believe that is actually all in, including the pension compensation, any benefits. It's all in on increasing that. That was based on some of the figures we had discussed.
It's total.
It's close. It's approximate, but it's pretty close to all in. That includes the pension and the Social Security, Medicare, and disability. It's pretty close. I mean, you can tell they're rounded to the nearest 1,000 or something there, but it's pretty close. Depending on the a la carte option, that 70th percentile could be, it could go up or down. The range is a little higher for it, depending on what study you looked at and which option you went with within that. But yeah, that includes the pension and the benefits.
And the charts that you used, are they apples to apples in terms of total compensation? In other words, we have a very generous pension plan.
Correct.
And so does the charts you had up there before, do they all, and we don't have to go back, but.
No, you're fine.
Do they have an apples to apples in terms of factoring in and out pensions and health and all the other factors that would kind of go into it, or is this like a cash analysis? I'm just trying to understand.
No, very fair question. It does account for the pension. Health insurance, not so much, because it does change, and to be honest, we're somewhat lacking in compared to other entities with health insurance compensation. For instance, Laverne pays the premiums for their employees for an employee plus family. The town of Smyrna offers an HSA plan for $200 a month for a family, and they'll contribute half of your maximum out of pocket to an HSA every year. So some of these other entities offer a better health insurance avenue for compensation, but we offer 12%, almost 13, right, Michael, for contribution for retirement, correct?
12.35 for pension.
So most entities are offering 8%, so we're about 4.5 off. So when I came up with these numbers, you have the 70th percentile target, but you must take into account the extra 4% that we contribute unmatched to an employee. So we wanted to get around the 95% mark of the 70th percentile target, if that makes sense. Give or take. Now, keep in mind, this is an all-in. We wanted an a la carte option. just to see what we need to make an approach on and how we need to take action. And I will tell you, just in conversation with some of the first responders in this county, the eyes are on us. They're on us in this room right now. They're on us on TV. People are deciding what to do with their careers. That's very important. And I can't stress this, and this has really hit home. We have first responders in this county donating plasma. That is where we are. The dollar amounts, if we go with any of these options, they're not going to be just sitting. They're going to be reinvested into our economy. They're going to be buying clothing for their kids. They're going to be now spending money that they didn't have the money to spend before, that stays within our economy at the local level, and we will see a return in this, not only on the dollar side, but also on the investment in our employees and how they are treated in our recruitment and retention. So, Michael, can you allude to some options we might have to pay for this?
Sure. So I'm not ranking these in any particular order. I am not advocating that we do any of these, so nobody go home and say, Michael said we need to raise taxes. But that is always an option. So that's the easy one out there to throw out there. I'm not advocating we do that. But the second easiest option is we budget into a deficit. That is perfectly legal. There is nothing wrong with that, other than, budgeting deficit inherently, but that's still an option. And then the third option is going to be a really complex move of moving pennies around on the tax rate. We could, if there's a motion made, we could dive into several options there. To do a hybrid of that, we could move some pennies, cut some expenditures, do those types of things to lower that deficit. I think that would encompass looking at every fund on the tax roll. Looking at all the expenditures, and so I think those are really three options, with the third option being very broad with the movement of pennies and expenditures between funds, without getting super detailed.
And one of the options we looked at on the 70th percentile, and I speak on that more because the longevity and experience is pretty straightforward, is potentially an extra 3% lift to the table countywide, because we see where our lowest ranking to get to that 70th percentile was at least 3%. And then we look at our fire and EMS with those remaining about $2.9 million in funds, dedicating it to those two departments to make sure that they're getting up to the 70th percentile target.
Sonia, I've got a couple questions, if you don't mind. On this longevity pay, since he mentioned that last, is that figure that he's putting out there, the $800,000 per year, for all employees, or is that just for public safety related?
That is for all full-time employees.
All county employees, other than school? Okay. And another question I had related to benefits. Do you concur with what he was saying about health insurance, retirement? How would you rank us to the other entities here in Rutherford County?
Well, I do believe that the county's pension plan is more beneficial or lucrative than the other entities. We have a defined benefit. The defined contribution is a little bit different. And so each pay period, the county is already contributing towards our employees' pension long-term. So you're looking at not only having their base salary, but that extra 12% is being contributed based on their pay cycle. And so that's, over time, that is clearly worth more than a 3% match, 3% plus a 3% match. You're looking at almost double the benefit from some of these individuals, and a little less than double for others. So I would say that that's one thing. We've actually added some, we talked in the insurance committee today, we've actually added a couple of benefits that I don't believe these other entities has, as it relates to air shuttles on insurance for our upcoming January 1, 2026. And I can't think of the other one, but there was another item added today as well. So when it relates to that, I think that's probably better than some, although we're not paying the same percentage as some of them, we do have what I would consider, some extra benefits. But based on those things, I do think that if we look at the 12% on the pension, that is, even if you count the extra half, that is something that should be considered in the overall compensation package. So.
I'd like to see that rated against these other numbers that I'm seeing sometime in the future. I'm not trying to rush you on that, but I would like to see that sometime. Another question, but let me look around, make sure the other commissioners, Commissioner Gooch.
You're more than welcome to finish your questions, but I guess my question, so right now, we're at the 50th percentile. Is that correct?
You will be with Mayor Carr's recommendation.
Okay, and that's already in this budget. So, Ms. Davidson, I know several years ago we started this process of increasing raises for the employees, including public safety. Do you know what percentile we started out at? Do you remember? I think.
So each year we've tried to maintain, it's been in the handbook even before I came to the county, that the county would be an average paying employer at the 50th percentile. So, over time, as each year surveys have done, we've tried to keep up with those trends. Obviously, sometimes through the budget cycle, we weren't able to do as much as we were, but that's been the intent all along. A few years ago, we started, we had the 20% increase, and then the 6%, and then the 4.25%, some of those along the way that have been better than they have been before. But we've also along the way have done reclassifications of positions, and sometimes that's overlooked because if the table's not lifted, I think the perception is that we've not done anything to the pay increases. But when we reclassify, sometimes a person will get 6-9% increase that year because we've taken their position up several pay grades. And just to note, just a quick glance at what it would cost. I mean, when we look at, and I think he even put in here, all other employees receive proportional increases to the compensation. So I look to see what job titles, because as we've talked about before, these positions are the building blocks for all your other positions. So when you change those positions, it rolls up. And so you're looking at, on average, for the sheriff's office, both patrol and detention, the correctional work center and juvenile detention center, and the ambulance service, you're looking at having 9.75 increase to several classifications along the way. There's because if you lift the 6% to get to where he's trying to get with this salary based on our current structure, plus the 2% lift to the table and the step increase, it's going to be around 9.75%.
Okay, and thank you, Ms. Stevenson. So on page, let me go back. On page 4, is this what came out of public safety? And I'll read it. So in April of 2025, the Public Safety Committee passed along a motion to examine, and then about 5 bullet points.
Correct.
So their motion to us was to examine these things.
It was to get a dollar amount, which is what we spoke about, I believe, in the April meeting.
So that did get passed, and as part of that, when the mayor did his budget, the mayor's budget does have, as Commissioner Beverly alluded to, it does have some targeted pay increases for a lot of the positions that were on the slide. It does have some targeted extra pay increases for firefighters, EMTs, detention officers, patrol. And so I think, and the mayor stepped out, but I'm not speaking for him, but I think in looking at that, the mayor did what he could with the dollars that he had available at that time. So this committee and the mayor both took direction from that April 2025 motion from public safety, which is how we got to I believe it was the 50th percentile and some of the targeted raises. So that's where that came from.
With the targeted raises, put that classification, or some of those classifications above a 50 percentile?
You'd have to ask Sonia.
So no. So what we did is we took the targeted, and I think to Mr. Beverly's, I have to get back to it, because I know that in the mayor's recommendation, it was addressed, the patrol twos, the booking and detention officers, the firefighters. Those were for sure adjusted. We adjusted the advanced EMTs because those was one of the ones based on the study. And so if I'm remembering correctly, and I could look it up, I'm pretty sure the paramedics, the firefighters, and the booking and detention got a 2 pay grade step increase, which would have been...
Not paramedics.
I didn't say advanced EMTs. I'm sorry. Let me clarify.
EMTs, fire detention 2.
2, and then patrol 1. So every pay grade is 3%. So we added 3% to patrol, and we added 6% to the other in his recommendation based on plus the 2 plus the 1.75. So
And with all of that, it still puts us at a 50 percentile. Okay, and
yes, I mean it's not yes.
It's not exact. But
based on the survey, yes.
So on the 8.2, is that all county general, or just the ones listed in this presentation?
It would have just been for the sheriff's department, fire department, and EMS department. Okay, and
we lumped. There's a few others lumped in there.
Yep, I'm sorry. Yes, there are, and the reason why we did that is, like I said, the sheriff's department was around.
Wasn't the 800 for everybody?
I'm sorry, the 800. If you're looking at the 70th percentile target, that was just those departments. So
the 800 is for everybody countywide. The $1.5 million for the experience recognition is also countywide, or very close to that.
So just my last comment or question. So on the last page is, thoughts. So I guess my thoughts is to move from 50 percentile to 70 percentile in 1 year. I'm going to guess it could very well overwhelm the budget. So the options we were given was a tax increase, deficit spending, and of course moving pennies, along with probably some deficit spending. So my thoughts would be is instead of jump from 50 to 70% in one budget year, maybe do it in piecemeal with a X number of years to get to that 70%. Now when I say X number of years, I don't mean 5 or 10. I'm talking about, 3 or so, and so that we don't have this $8.2 million hit to our budget in one cycle.
I see your point in that, but what concerns me with potentially doing that is we just did a big public safety compensation adjustment in 2022, and now in just a matter of 2 years, just about, we're now $8 million apart. We stagger that. I'm afraid even if when we get to year 3 of that potential plan, we're still $8.2 million apart because other entities are raising it faster than we can. And I don't want to get into that adage, but a lot of these entities have the ability to generate revenues that we do not. And so the goal line is going to constantly be moved. If we had a constant finish line, that I could see the benefit of that, but what concerns me is we're still going to be outpaced, and we make this investment year after year. We lose the people because we're not keeping up, and then boom, we're 8.2 million apart. We've done $2 million a year or $4 million a year here or there, but now the goalpost is just as far away as when we started.
But could you also say that if we were able to do this, and then we were 70 percentile, then what those other cities can do, because they got more options for revenue, that within a year we could be back down to 60%, 50%.
We could, but that's...
Now we're looking at another 8 mil.
Right, but if we adopt this plan and then we're at the 50th percentile or 60th percentile, what happens? We can what if it to death, but if they do increase it and we take no action this year, we're now in the 40th percentile because we didn't move forward and they kept moving. We're in this position now that it's a necessary service. We have to keep moving. We have to keep adjusting. We have to keep looking at these ways we can move our budget to be as sound as possible because this is a core government function. 911 calls are a core government function. And we are looking at, if we don't adjust our salaries, we will not have cream of the crop to choose. And what happens when we're not getting the most qualified, but we're putting a gun on their hip?
Sonia, a couple of questions. How many openings are there in EMS at this time? Director Gaither was in here, I don't know, last time I remember seeing him, he told me there were none at that time. Of course, the next question is fire. How many openings there are there? I'm pretty much aware about the Sheriff's Department. We're wide open there. We are begging for people.
Okay, looks like we have, as of right now, we have, now there may be some positions that are in the process of being hired, but it looks like there's 5 positions, and I know that there's at least 1 in the pipeline, so 4 positions in ambulance. And
Are these due to the new buildings coming on, these openings?
no, sir, these are just vacancies.
Okay.
And then we currently have 4 firefighters vacancies, and of course, one of the sort positions, which is EMA, but fire counts that. So we've got 4, and again, I'm not sure if they've got some in the pipeline, you know, ready to start. As far as the sheriff's office, I can tell you that too.
I'm assuming those are in the pipeline. I've had people calling me asking about those particular jobs.
I mean, that's a very valid point of where our job openings are. But again, we've had a lot of first responders put their career on hold to decide what we were going to do since November of last year. They're waiting to decide now. And that's where we are. So yes, those numbers are reflective, but I'm concerned. And you know, when I went through my flight training, I was told, be direct when you see an issue up in the air, and I'm going to be direct. I'm concerned. I'm worried where we will end up.
The sheriff's office, it looks like for the certified, which includes several different types of positions, looks like there's 16 as of right now.
Tanya, that's good enough. That answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. Any other questions from the committee? Chairman Phillips, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me see if I can understand this a little bit more clearly. To follow up on what Commissioner Gooch was saying a little bit earlier about spreading it out, I took it to mean that we're not just going to give that amount, but we're going to give that amount plus what would normally be coming their way. Would we still continue to fall behind if we did that? If we gave normal increases plus spread the $5.9 million bucks out over a number of years? As an example, we could give increases of $1.2 million to knock that down over a 2.5-year period of time, every 6 months through January of 2027. And if we continued to give budgeted increases along the way, I'm not sure I follow that we would continue to fall behind. So if we spread that out, it may be more acceptable to commissioners and the general public if we did that, but also continue to give our regular, normal increases that we would have budgeted anyway. So if we did that, spread that out, I'm just using that as an example, the next 2.5 years, starting this July, we gave whatever the percentage is of $1.2 million, that's $6 million over 2.5 years. If we did that, spread that out, what's the drawback of doing something like that?
we're still below the 70th percentile, and we will continue to be if we do that, because while we're moving, we might be at the 50th now, and with each adjustment, we might move to the 52nd percentile, the 55th percentile. We're still behind, and we will continue to be behind. And when you're highlighting almost $10,000 to $15,000 a year difference in salaries, I don't know if some of these employees will stay on that. I'm not sure, and that's the hesitancy of doing that is it's a different approach to what we've done in the past. And I think that's what a lot of the public safety employees are looking at is, are we going to just get the same that we've gotten for years, or is this a turning the corner on something new?
Michael, if we gave the 5.9 now, effective July 1st, what would that cost us as it relates to, and if we put it on the property taxes, what would that be?
I rounded up to 6 million because that's going to be an estimate. What's on the screen? 3.8 pennies, roughly.
What's that, about 2% of our property tax rate?
I'll tell you. Hold on.
And just to be clear, because people periodically give me a hard time about saying pennies.
Yeah, fair enough.
The actual dollars of that is around $6 million in tax increase.
That'd be a roughly, I'm rounding here to the 2.03% increase.
Let me also follow up with you, Michael, if I could. Commissioner Beverly's logic about if we spread that out over a 2 or 3, let's say a 2.5 year period of time, would that percentile continue to go down? I don't get that logic, but maybe it's just me and my simple way of thinking that's not logical. So Commissioner Beverly said if we spread it out, we would still continue to be behind year after year. And my thought was if we spread it out over a 2.5 year period of time, plus give annual increases the way we would anyway, wouldn't that catch us up and not get us behind? Or can you explain that a little bit better to me?
Yes, I think the one variable that's missing out of that piece is what do these other municipalities and counties do, right? So I think if we knew they were going to hold steady at 2% and we were going to give 2%, and then every year we put an extra cent, then I think that your logic is correct. We would eventually catch up in a couple years. I think the variable in the room is we have no control and have no idea what these other municipalities or counties would do. So I think there's an option that, yes, we would catch up in a year or two, and I think there's also an option that we'd be even further behind. I think the only thing constant is we know, I think, what they're estimating to next year and what we are, and that's really all we can control.
But logically, okay, if we did the 6 million, the 5.9 million this summer, July 1st, it could still happen. They could continue to give increases and would be behind as well.
That's correct.
So what's the difference? That's what I'm asking. What's the difference? If they want to pay more than we do, then they're going to raise, no matter what we do, they're going to raise and continue to raise. Does that mean that we'll come back 6 months from now and say the $6 million is not enough, we need more? Jonathan, that's what I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Beverly, that's the logic that I'm trying to find. If we spread that out over a number of years, and let's just say we gave $1.2 million every 6 months for the next 2.5 years, it would get us up to the $6 million bucks. Plus we gave our raises, it would be more acceptable maybe to the commission as a whole, and especially to the taxpayers of Rutherford County. That's what I'm saying, is that if we can reach some kind of a compromise and do something like that, it may be more acceptable to more people. My concern It's just like what we just discussed. If we gave the $6 million this summer, July 1st, if we did that, what's to prevent all of these other folks from coming back around and giving 10% in January? Where would we be then, and what would you be presenting to the commission 6 months from now or a year from now?
I feel like this sets us up on the track of where we need to be, because if we don't adopt this, some version of this proposal, we're swimming against the current. We're not going to be, in 2 years, we're going to be in the exact same spot. Now, we're seeing a lower amount of what these changes are going to be year after year. I think a couple years ago, Murfreesboro did a 20% increase. Now they're down to a 6%. So we're seeing some changes of that, but Murfreesboro's prerogative is to stay competitive with Metro Nashville. And we may not like it, but if they're staying competitive with Metro Nashville, we're going to have to as well, just because we're competing with Metro or Murfreesboro. But I don't want us to just be swimming against the current, and what I'm afraid of is, as we continue to do this, we can invest $1.2 million here, plus our rate increases, but we're staying right around that 50th percentile when we know the target is 70th. And I think as we just continue to invest in this, we're going to see the return on our investment through retention and some sort of leveled approach with our employees, that the changes, even if those entities make a change, let's say it's a 6% increase, well, we offer the 4% more. And when it comes to pension, okay, we're not talking we're too far away. Are they going to give up their seniority, their benefits, everything that we offer as a county to jump ship and go be the new guy? They may not do that for a couple grand, but they will do it for $17,000.
Recognize Mayor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Beverly, thank you for this presentation. If you don't mind, if you could go back to the second slide. It's the background slide. Thank you. No, sir, it's the one that's, no, sir, it's the second slide. It's the one that says background, and you got 4 bullet points.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. On the second bullet point, it says Rutherford County has a high attrition rate with employees employed less than 5 years. Can you define for me high attrition rate and how you came up with the fact that the attrition rate is high? And also, could you define for me attrition rate?
Well, I would guess what I mean by that is, once we keep an employee after 5 years, they're pretty much here. It's that 1 to 5 year mark is where we're really struggling to keep them. That's when they're jumping ship, once they're getting that, once they are getting that, hitting that mark.
So what is that attrition rate?
I don't know that to be exact. That's just the experience mark when we're seeing the most departures, is within the 1 to 5.
Do you have an idea of what that is? Because you use high attrition rate. I'm just trying to understand what the definition of attrition is. And so is attrition every employee who left for any reason, or would that include those employees that were terminated? Would that include those employees that retired? Would that include employees that passed away? I'm trying to get a definition of attrition, and then I'm also trying to get a definition of what constitutes high. And I really appreciate your comparative analysis on the salaries between Rutherford County and the municipalities within Rutherford County. And I would like to know, did you do a comparative analysis like you did with the salaries on the attrition rate?
So to get the high attrition rate, I guess the best way to phrase that would be, if you look at how many employees are leaving with 1 year experience, 2 years experience, altogether, for any reason, 1 to 5 carries the highest range.
It does?
Out of all of those.
So what is that number?
I don't have that right in front of me.
Oh, if you don't have it, then how do you know it's high?
Because it's higher than all the other subsets.
Okay, so it's higher than what other subsets? I'm trying.
I guess so. It would be, if you look at the employees that leave from 1 to 5 years.
Right.
That number is higher than the amount of employees that left us with 5 to 10 years experience.
Correct. And so I'm trying to get from you, you're making that assertion, and I think would be an accurate assumption. I'm wanting to know, you've pulled the data, what is the number of employees who are leaving first responders positions in the 1 to 5 year time frame? Because the premise of your argument is that we have a high attrition rate. All I'm trying to do is get you to help me quantify what that number is, and then because you did a comparative analysis on salaries between counties and the cities in Rutherford County, what is their attrition rate? Because it seems that the whole premise of the raises is based on we got a high attrition rate. I'm trying to get you to define for me what attrition is and then what constitutes a high attrition rate.
I guess when we're attacking where our weakness is, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, it was where are we losing the most employees with experience, and that was what I was trying to, I guess, highlight is we're losing them within the first 5 years and essentially becoming the training wheels that they will leave us after even being promoted at the Sheriff's Department to go to Franklin PD. They'll leave us as an engineer with our fire department to go become a firefighter with Franklin or Brentwood. So I don't have those exact numbers.
I totally agree. But what makes you believe that our attrition rate then is any different than any other municipality or county?
I guess when I talk to Murfreesboro Fire and Murfreesboro Police and they're telling me they're canceling recruit classes because they don't need to hire anybody, they're retaining those employees, which would tell me in that 1 to 5 year mark, the people that they just hired are still there. So
don't you think it would be important to have these numbers before we determined that indeed we had a high attrition rate? Or you just, because it doesn't sound like you know what the attrition rate is.
No, I would say we're short of the 70th percentile target, and that's what we do know. And this is not an all or nothing approach when it comes to how we want to move forward. But what I do know is when we have the lowest paid within the county, I'm sounding an alarm that this is going to become a problem and we need to address it. And getting ahead of it rather than behind it and doing a large lump sum similar to what we did in 2022 is not the option. It's essentially sounding an alarm.
Do you know if the attrition rate within the first responders is any different than the attrition rate within County General?
I couldn't speak to that. I'd have to ask Sonia to be sure.
Thank you.
Guys, we can do quite a bit of debating on this. A lot of this information is new to us, and I'm going to recognize our commission chairman here in a moment. One thing I do want to point out is, you know, this is something that I want to take some time to sit down and look at personally. I think it does need addressing. We have, and Sonia can give you percentages, that we have deficit spent. We have raised taxes. We have done all these things for our first responders and all our employees. We're not sitting here with deaf ears. We are trying to maintain, we are trying to improve, and we're trying to keep the best qualified people that we can, and we look at that. But we also have the responsibility of our taxpayers and what their increases are. I know the people in my area had a 50% increase on their assessed values, and what did that do to their taxes? So we have a lot to look at. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not personally ready to make a decision on this tonight. However, if the committee is, then that's up to you guys. But before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Chairman Phillips.
Thank you. I'm a member of this committee, but I'm a non-voting member of this committee, and I can't make a motion. But it would be a recommendation from this commissioner that we look at spreading this $6 million out over a 2-year period of time at $1.5 million every July and every January 1st through 1/1 of 27. That would be 4 increases of $1.5 million every 6 months to get us up to the $6 million in addition to what would normally we would be giving to those. If I'm not mistaken, Michael, and I heard you right, that would be less than a penny a year or somewhere in the neighborhood of a penny a year.
Well, not to further complicate things, but before we could get to that, we're going to have to define what that $6 million is. So is that a lift to the table? Is that a pay grade change? This is not going to be as simple as let's just add $6 million to the budget. There's going to have to be some definition of what do you want to do as a committee or as a commission, and give me some direction or Sonia some direction and say, all right, I want this group to be at this range, because that may be a grade change. I want this group to have an across-the-board raise. Well, that's something different too, because I just want to clarify something. We do have a law enforcement pay table, but not everybody at the sheriff's office is on that table. So we need to be careful about what we want to do and say, because if you would like to get to the 70th percentile for just one group of people, now we have to define which group that is. And so I think I'm saying all those things just because those are questions that have to be answered before I could tell you how much it's going to cost, before I tell you if we could institute it over however many months. And so I think Commissioner Beverly has said overall he would like to get to the 70th percentile. He estimates that'll be somewhere around $6 million. And while that may be true, we have to define which part of his recommendation we want to move forward with, or at all, or this committee does, because one of his presentation was a 3%. Part of that lift was a 3% lift to the entire pay table, so that you encompass the paramedics, the EMTs, and the support staff. And so I'm saying all that to sound complicated, because it is. And so, not to further complicate things, but that would be some direction I would need before I could tell you exactly how much it's going to cost and exactly how many pennies.
That is complicating things, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I know you're exactly right. But couldn't we decide that that's our target, the $6 million over the next 2 years, and allow Sonia the opportunity to make a decision and a recommendation as to what we do with the tables before we vote on that final budget, which would be, what, June the 5th at a budget committee meeting?
If you're asking, can you split this over multiple years, the answer is completely yes. As long as even Sonia to come back with a recommendation, she's going to have some direction of which group you're trying to target, or are we targeting across the board, or are we going to target a specific group? Because if you say law enforcement, that's a broad term, and you can't use our law enforcement table because we have other support staff that are not there. So I'm saying, even if you want to split something and have Sonia come back with some options for June 5th or for some other meeting, you're going to have to give her some direction on which group of people that includes, or it may just include everybody.
I can see your approach on that, and maybe that's the way to go of breaking this up. For simplicity's sake, because about $1.5 million is about a 1% lift to the table, what about looking at a 3% lift to the table for simplicity's sake initially now? And then as we look at those next 6 months, every 6 months, that's when we invest the remaining funds to those targeted areas, and it buys us a little bit of time.
You're looking at me, Commissioner Beverly, and you ought to be looking at the
well, I guess you were the one that
members.
made the suggestion.
But my suggestion was that should be our target, and then we can come back. I think it's at our June 5th meeting. The Budget Committee meets on June 5th, and try to have those details worked out and see what that would be. Would that accomplish maybe what you had in mind, Chairman P., about not making a decision tonight, but giving us something else to look at?
I'm sitting here going through our schedule, trying to find a place we could squeeze that in. And, I think, Sonia, would you have time to look at some of this and report back by the 5th? Well, we're talking about the suggestion that we go every 6 months with an increase to try to get us toward this 70 percentile, what's that, about 400,000 every 6 months? What is that, Michael? What would that be? Now, I'm not saying what categories they're in, I'm just talking numbers.
What I'm trying to say is, for me to give this committee or anybody an accurate number of what that's going to cost, you have to give me and Sonia some direction of which group we are trying to target. And I don't believe we've gotten that yet I haven't received that yet from this presentation.
And I understand that. All I'm asking for is hard numbers.
What I'm saying is I can't give any hard numbers until I know which group you want to apply this 70th percentile to. Is it the county-wide? Is it a certain department? Do you see what I'm asking?
The $6 million, the $5.9 million, Michael, is for just public safety employees. Is that correct?
So one of the options we spoke about of that $5.9 million would have been a 3% lift to the table countywide, And that avoids having to go line item by line item, picking certain groups. And then from there, that accomplishes getting the sheriff's patrol deputies to about the 70th percentile. But we're still falling short on the 70th percentile target of fire and EMS. Now, that 3% would get us to about 2.7 million remaining. So at that point, then you could split it up and say, okay, we're going to go halfway to the remaining target this section or this 6 months, and then 6 months later we push us to the next part. That could be where we triage it. I would think for simplicity's sake, let's get until we get to that 3% raise threshold countywide. We don't delegate which funds are going where, if that makes sense.
So I just want to ask. I'm sorry.
You're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question. If I want to make sure I heard you right just now. So as opposed to the 2% lift to the table countywide, you're proposing a 3% lift to the table countywide.
No, an additional. So we're about 4%.
Oh, 5%.
Right. We're about 4% off where our patrol deputies should be. We're about 10% for fire and EMS. So that gives us, that 3% would give us an immediate target for all departments, and then once we hit that threshold, then we start dividing it on the targeted approaches we want for various positions.
And when you say all departments, are you talking the sheriff's office, ambulance, and fire? Or are you talking all departments?
No, I'm saying countywide.
Countywide.
Countywide. Okay. Until we see a 3% increase countywide, I would think we wouldn't start divvying it up if we're going to break away from doing the entire 5.9 at once.
Vice Chairman Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Do you know, is there any kind of a rule within the Sheriff's Department, fire, ambulance, that their patrol officers or anyone has to live in Rutherford County?
I don't believe they have to live in Rutherford County. I think there's fire and EMS don't have take-home vehicles, but the Sheriff's Department does. I'm not sure what their mileage range on taking their car home or if they have a residency requirement.
I'm seeing a shake of the head. There's no requirement.
There's no residency requirement. And the reason I'm asking is because as far as patrol, I'm looking on this right here, we pay better than Williamson County, Hamilton's not close by, but Wilson County, Shelbyville, Marshall County, Cannon County, Tullahoma, Woodbury, Coffee County. Those are not long commutes. So can we recruit from Tullahoma? I mean, there's so many counties close to us that as far as patrol, that we pay better. Mm-hmm. The ones that pay better than us, obviously, is Brentwood and Franklin. Those are high cotton areas. The cities around us, and basically cities. I'm not looking at any county, and we know that the cities have better funding mechanisms. So again, I'm just not seeing any counties that pay better than us, but so many counties and some smaller cities that are within a 30-minute drive.
For sure, and those same officers coming from Tullahoma PD, they may look at a county or they may go, but with their certification, they can move from police department to county sheriff's office and back to police department as they wish. So we're competing with police departments and county sheriff's offices in the same way. There's no differentiating that. They can go to either one. So that same Tullahoma officer, he's probably going to put an application in at Murfreesboro PD as well. He's going to put an application in at Laverne, Smyrna.
But there's no openings in Murfreesboro, according to what you said.
If there are openings, other agencies.
No openings, according to what you said.
It could still happen.
Let me kind of cut to the chase here. As far as our committee goes, do I hear any comments from any of the other commissioners that have not spoke yet on this? Do I hear a recommendation? I'm going to talk to my committee first. I'll recognize you in a minute. Anybody have any comments they want or questions they have for Commissioner Beverly at this time. The problem I've got is I don't feel secure making a decision in this shorter time period looking at this. I want some time to digest it, personally speaking. But we can do a couple things. We could move this to the Hill, as in to the end of the program, discuss this a little more about exactly what we want to have Sonia or Michael or whoever discuss or look at. But again, that's up to you guys sitting here in front of me. But I think we do need to move on. We do have to post something. Like I said, this is a lot of information, and like I said, this is not falling on deaf ears. You know, we recognize the problem there. Having said that, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the Public Safety Committee, I did vote for this to come before this body so that you could look at ways to address the issues that Commissioner Beverly has shared with you. And so I do think it's important. But as Chairman said, I think you have to take some time to kind of look at it and figure out if and how this can be done. I appreciate what Chairman Phillips said about stepping our way to it, because it shows some good faith that we're trying to do something. But at the same time, we can look at some other things, like you just passed the school budget, which to me has a lot of fluff and it's pretty top heavy. So we could look at some kind of way to bring some of that to be able to fund our public safety professionals. But I do agree that this is worth your time and effort as far as showing good faith in how we can keep our public safety professionals happy. And I know you talked about what a pension looks like, but I know they're looking at immediate needs, their immediate needs, not retirement. So how can I pay for groceries? How can I pay my rent? Whatever the case may be. So I appreciate the fact that this has been presented to you, and I appreciate you all taking the time to at least make an effort to see how we can fund this. Thank you.
I'm looking back at our Commissioner Gooch, you recognize.
This is a suggestion, is that I know we've got some other things on our agenda, is maybe move this conversation, I think you mentioned, to the end of the meeting. My observation is that, if I'm correct, that we have to have our budget set ready for publication by June the 15th.
That part is true. However, it has to be sent into the paper well before then. So we have set the calendar. Once you vote tonight, it'll take us a day or two to get it to the paper. So while, yes, it has to be there by June 15th, we don't have any more wiggle room. We couldn't do this at June 5th is what I'm trying to tell you.
It would have to be done on June 5th, or is that too late?
What I'm saying is you have to, whatever you give me tonight is what has to go in the paper, unless you wanted to recess till tomorrow, I guess.
What you put in the paper, though, is not necessarily, it can be changed, but this is what's going to publication for our public hearings.
Okay, my question, so the public hearing is on?
June 17th.
June 17th. So what would be wrong with this? At the end of this meeting, the last agenda item, we kind of give Ms. Stevenson and you some guidance, and even if we need to have a special call meeting, say on the 11th, to wrap this up, would that give us time to make to the newspapers?
No, I'll have to have this in the paper first early next week, sometime.
So what would be the last day that you think?
I don't know. I just know it's early next week. I'd have to go look when we emailed the paper to get it in. Now, like Chairman P said, y'all can make changes on the 5th, on the 18th to the budget. I just can't make them to what's published in the paper.
So you could go ahead and get it to the paper, knowing that we may have a meeting on the 11th and things would change. That's my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to move this to the Hill, and we'll have a short discussion, hopefully, at the end of this meeting? Do I hear a second?
Yeah.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, will speak at the end of the agenda.
Thank you all for the time.
All right, next up is a request which also came from the Public Safety Committee for an additional $40,000 for the Amiable Volunteer Fire Department. Commissioner James, if you'd like to speak on that, you're welcome to. You don't have to come up here. You can sit there if you want, or you can come up to the well.
This was that Is it on? Okay. This was that recommendation that I had brought up a couple of meetings back to you gentlemen. It was in reference to, and at that meeting it came out that the funds from the volunteers was going to continue with Christiana, move over to Fosterville, so the funds I initially looked at wasn't going to be as available. So the need is still there for the Amiable Volunteer Fire Department for the extra added fees, added costs that are accumulated over the last couple of years. For example, just their insurance alone is $40,000 a year. So with those adjustments made, I went to Public Safety and discussed it and made the motion. It passed 6-1 to increase Amable's volunteer department's pay scale by $40,000, which was originally as I requested to this body. So I would appreciate the consideration and the need. If you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Okay, you've heard the request to add $40,000 to Amiable Volunteer Fire Department. Any discussion from the committee? Any questions? Hear none. I'm open to motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve $40,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second, 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Mr. Chairman, can I read the line item for the minutes, please?
Yes. So
this will increase Fund 101, line item 54320-399. It'll increase it by $40,000 to $280,000.
Okay, that is your motion. Is that okay?
What? I got one other thing.
Marino.
And then that new total for that category for fire will be $13,645,614.
Commissioner Serino, is that okay with your motion and your second? Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Piercy.
Do you have any idea what type of monies they have in their coffer?
I'm considering this increase based upon what we require them to do in operating as the volunteer department, and the requirement funds and the expensive of that has come up. Their coffer comes from their own fundraising ability to do the other sides of their operation that they have to function. But the things, whether it becomes the pump certifications, the hose checks, the extinguisher run flows, the maintenance of the equipment, or the insurance or the other items on that list, that's where this funds need to be increased for, to have that covered as we agreed to in our agreement with them. So as far as their direct funds from their fundraising side, that is a separate entity for their behalf, for their operational side, not for the required amounts that we require of them, which is why with those numbers increasing. And in addition, with our facilities growing around the county, and we're not able to look out there for another 18 months to 2 years, we need to make sure we have that rising cost covered to make sure that we do have that unified coverage over there as well.
That was a very detailed reply, but you didn't answer my question. But I do want to try to correct you on one thing that you commented on. I think the county maintains the maintenance on 2 of their trucks. Is that right or wrong?
Yes and no. On, like, for example, one of their trucks that the county is dealing the maintenance on is down. It's been down since, correct me if I'm wrong, December, and they've been operating without it. So it's hard to have those kind of expenses and issues waiting for things to turn around like that and then maintain the other ones as well. And that's where some of the financial drag starts coming from. So you can see that back and forth as well.
So do you think they'll take this extra money you're requesting to fix the truck that is down, or they're going to leave that up to the county to
Well,
maintain?
our contract has any funds we give them has the parameters they have to meet each quarter. So they meet the parameters to receive the funding, and if they don't meet those parameters, they don't receive the funding. So it's the same thing. It's just to cover the additional costs and the growth of the expenses that we do require of them.
Thank you.
Mayor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner James requested that the EMA Director, Chris Clark, provide response detail for the Almaville Fire Department, and I was given this information earlier today. And according to Jason Wood, the lead communications officer for the Rutherford County EMA, EMS, and Fire, between the July 1, 2024 to April 30th, 2025, total calls assigned to the Almaville Fire Department was 1,097. Total responses from the 1,097 was 651. Total arrivals to scene was 380 of the 1,097. No response was 446. Canceled en route, 271.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? No. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes. I believe the motion carries.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay, that moves us down to item 4, review of the 25-26 other budgets as necessary. And I want to make note of a couple things before we start calling our folks up here. This is one of the last chances. This is the last chance to make changes prior to publication. That does not mean that we cannot change after publication. You know, there have been some changes, but I want people to be aware of that. Commissioner Gooch looks like you want to say something, so go ahead.
Well, after you, I've got a proposal.
Okay. Just so you know, when we reviewed the nonprofits, the Child Advocacy Center wasn't available that night. They are here, and I'm going to ask them to speak and present. And then also, there was a request that we had some problems with paperwork stapled for the Smyrna Senior Center, and those we'll hear those two, and I'd like to do those first. And I'm going to call on the Child Advocacy Center first, if that's okay with the committee, to have a short presentation. Commissioner Irving.
5 minutes.
I've had a request for a 5-minute break. Committee, let's take 5 minutes. And the Child Advocacy Center has got a spokesperson coming up. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jennings Jones. I'm the District Attorney for Rutherford and Cannon Counties. I've been asked to come forward today to speak to you about the Child's Advocacy Center. For the past 25 years, the Child's Advocacy Center has provided services to Rutherford and Cannon counties, provides forensic interviews, which are near and dear to my office. Those are of extreme and important assistance in child abuse, whether it's physical or sexual abuse. CAC provides darkness to light training to help adults recognize when children are being either physically or sexually abused. The CAC provides assistance with drug-endangered children, helping to remove children who are in homes that they are subject to exposure to methamphetamine, to fentanyl, to other drugs. Provides crisis counseling for both minor victims and for parents of those children. It's done that for the past 25 years, and for the past 25 years, within those years, The CAC has involved itself or been involved with 14% of the population of this county. That's approximately 52,000 people who have been assisted by the Child Advocacy Center. About 1 in 10 people are sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. As you can see, with that 14%, we are sadly above average. Everyone here, whether you know it or not, knows a victim of sexual abuse. The CAC provides critical services to law enforcement, to DCS, and to my office. Forensic interviews are performed by trained interviewers, folks who are trained in how to interview a child. Interviewing a child is different than interviewing an adult. When you interview an adult, they are not as easily led. If you ask an adult a question, they'll think about it critically and deliver a response that is their own response. When you interview a child, that is not entirely the case. If you interview a child incorrectly, they may very well agree with anything that the interviewer says. And for that reason, you have to have someone who is trained in how to interview a child. If you do not have that special set of skills, then the child will not deliver an interview that can be used in court. And that's an important and key factor. Interviews that are performed by the CAC can be used in court as direct evidence. And it's important to note, I love my law enforcement agencies that I work with every day, and they do a great job. But their detectives are trained to deal with adults, as they should be. Their detectives are not trained, and more importantly, not certified to perform interviews with children. The CAC provides those services for every law enforcement agency in this jurisdiction. The cost of that is approximately $192,000 per year. That's a cost that every law enforcement agency in this jurisdiction does not have to pay, because that is being paid by the Children's Advocacy Center. If the CAC did not exist, then any law enforcement agency that wished to prosecute, to make arrests and have successfully prosecuted child physical and sexual abuse cases would have to employ, train, and certify, and pardon me, and then yearly recertify forensic interviewers at a cost of approximately $192,000 per year. I guess what I'm trying to say is the CAC provides a service that is necessary in every law enforcement agency in Rutherford County. Tennessee law mandates that there be a Children's Advocacy Center in each jurisdiction of the state. Unfortunately, as sometimes happens with our legislature, the legislature did not mandate that there be funding provided by the state. So we depend on raising funds both in the private sector from donations, and we also depend on our local governments to assist us with raising funds. Right now, as you are all aware, this county has experienced tremendous growth. Unfortunately, a side effect of that growth is a tremendous growth in crime and a growth in child physical and sexual abuse. The CAC has been successful in large part in keeping up with staffing. What the CAC needs help with is funding to provide a new workspace. We don't have a location that will allow for all of the staff of the CAC to have a desk. We have 2 interviewers in 2 interview rooms, and at some point we are going to reach a critical threshold beyond which the CAC will not be able to provide services to all of the children who are abused, whether physically or sexually. we will not be able to assist, or the CAC will not be able to assist with interviews for each of the cases that come to my office. And for that reason, we are here before you today to request assistance. I realize that the county, it's growing increasingly and possibly increasingly quickly, and that funds are needed everywhere. I know from hearing just tonight that funds are not easy to come by, but we are here to ask you for your help and your support for the most vulnerable members of our community. With that being said, I think that we have requested $1 million. That will be for the purpose of finding a building to renovate. We are not aiming at finding a piece of property and building from the ground up. We have found it would be less expensive to find a piece of, or to find an existing building and hopefully to be able to renovate that building. But we need your assistance to do that. But now, as I've said, I'm here from the district attorney's office to speak for the CAC and on behalf of the CAC. I will attempt to answer questions that you might have. If we get down deep into numbers, then I'm going to call on assistance from the executive director of the CAC. But at this time, I'll be happy to attempt to answer questions that you might have.
Questions from the committee or any of our other commissioners that are here? I've got a question. Excuse me, Chanto, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the Attorney General mentioned at the prefect. I had the chance to visit the Chairman P. We have met with the several people, and also I know the need for the building is necessary to be agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Chanto and I both visited the Child Advocacy Center. Quite a few of the commissioners were invited, and I have to agree with this group is something that's vital to our county, and they do work that we would have to provide if they weren't providing it. Unfortunately, the area that they're in is so cramped and so small. Doing their interviews, things like that, is almost impossible to schedule, having the room to do it, and the way our population is growing. But my question to you is, what dollar figure are y'all aiming at total overall, and how much have you fundraised already? So,
I believe that's a figure, or it's a question I'll probably refer.
Mr. Chairman, could he come up to the front?
So
that the folks at home can.
Sorry. Just to repeat for the audience there, he did say that $7 million was their goal. Welcome, if you would state your name. And
my name is Bill Whitesell, and I've been on the board of the Child Advocacy Center for 25 years, former district attorney here in Rutherford County. Our goal in our capital campaign, we're seeking to raise $7 million to buy and retrofit a building. Thus far, we, other than a few foundations that we are in the process of approaching and the county government, we have not gone to the public. We have conducted a feasibility study. We believe, based on that study, that we have the possibility of raising the money we need. But, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. I hope I've answered that one.
Commissioner Irvin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And some of these questions are mine, and a number of them came from other folks kind of in the community, kind of in the nonprofit community as well. And so, is there an umbrella organization for Child Advocacy Center, like a parent organization, or is this local, purely local?
This There is a statewide group, the Child Advocacy Centers for Tennessee, and that functions more or less as a lobbying arm in the state legislature to keep them updated on legislation that maybe the centers are asking for or seeking approval for. And they also make requests for funding and distribute it to child advocacy centers statewide.
Okay, so there is sort of one, and how much of the amount contributed would go to that organization?
On the building, none.
And how much of the operating budget, stays in Rutherford County?
With the exception of the operating budget that we have in Cannon County, which is part of our judicial district, I would say, well, I don't know whether our paper comes from Nashville or here, but the vast majority of our funding stays in Rutherford County. It's used for our employees who live here.
Okay, so that's the operating side. The capital campaign money, how much of that would stay in Rutherford County?
All of it.
Rutherford County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you indicated a $7 million goal. How could you tell me again how close you are to that goal?
We've probably raised about 1%. Our board has all pledged and contributed. This is one of the first big ask that we've made. We intend on going public sometime during the summer. We have a 25th anniversary celebration at the Chamber of Commerce. That will be when we break out our public part of the capital campaign. We expect it to last anywhere from 3 to 5 years to try to raise the money.
You're talking about 70,000 roughly so far?
Something in that neighborhood, yes, sir. Okay.
So has Christy Houston contributed?
No, sir. The reason that Christy Houston has not contributed is because they have certain parameters. We're seeking to raise half of our money in the next, well, we'd love to do it by the end of the year, and then we'll be able to approach Christy Houston. We have been in communication with them. We believe that we'll get some money from them, but we cannot set the figure exactly until we know.
We've been in communication with Ann Davis for a couple of years about this. One of the things we've known is that the Child Advocacy Center and the number of clients is growing every year. And our board was very proactive in looking at where we needed to go because of this incredible growth. And we know you all understand incredible growth. You're dealing with it every day, with the county commission. And so we've been talking to Ann Davis for several years, and she has been very supportive of us.
And other than the board, you mentioned the board, has any other organization contributed?
Well, we're at the very beginning of our capital campaign.
Okay, got it.
Bill Weitzel is our co-chair, and Kristen Demas from Demas's Restaurant has been a previous board member, and she's on board helping us with it, and we're just getting started, to be candid.
And if the goal's not met, what happens to the capital campaign funds?
Well, I'm going to tell you, we don't fail. This is Bill Weitzel. This is Jennings Jones. We have Kristen Demas. I'm Sharon DeBoer. We've never failed at anything at the Child Advocacy Center. And so we're going to accomplish this. When families have to sit in their car in the parking lot and wait for the family that's in the Child Advocacy Center to leave, it's heartbreaking. That you've got this little kid sitting in a hot car, especially this summer, in a hot car in the parking lot waiting to come in. We're just seeing so many children, you just can't imagine. When we first started this 25 years ago, we were seeing about 15 kids a month. And, we were little Rutherford County then. And now we are seeing probably 75, sometimes 80 new child sexual abuse cases a month. Now, we're talking about little kids that have been raped. We're talking about horrific abuse that would make your toes curl, you know. And so these are very serious cases. We have a district attorney who is outstanding. And Bill Whitesell was outstanding as well. And they genuinely care about children and families in this community. And so what they're doing every day is aggressively prosecuting cases that no other county in this state would take on and try to prosecute. And they're convicting people. They're getting life sentences. They're getting 99-year sentences. Last week they got a 52-year sentence. They will move forward with cases when all they have is the child's testimony. They've got law enforcement testimony, and let me tell you, the sheriff and these chiefs, they're giving us the best and the brightest in this community to work these cases, because these are hard cases. It's not easy to prosecute a child sexual abuse case. You've got a 3-year-old saying, you know, that they've been sexually abused. I mean, it's just unbelievable how hard these are to prosecute, and they're so successful at it. And they are, you know, looking at 75 new cases a month. Now, you think about it. If you went home today and your child or your grandchild said to you, they hopped up on your lap and said that someone in your life that you trust, because in Rutherford County, who do we leave our kids with? We leave them with people we trust. They're telling you that someone in your life that you trust has sexually abused them. Can you imagine how devastating that is for parents? And can you imagine how devastating that is to a little kid, to have someone harming them? And I think that we have an outstanding Department of Children's Services in Rutherford County. Our Department of Children's Services is not in the news every day. We have outstanding law enforcement. They do an incredible job. We have Our Kids Medical. They're based in Nashville. They want to move into our facility and respond to cases in our facility once we have one. That means, you know, nobody in town wants to drive to Nashville for anything, much less to have a medical exam for your child. And we have an outstanding district attorney's office. We are very blessed. And I think that if you could see those little children come into our facility every day, like the weight of the world is on their backs. And when they walk out, they look like a kid again. And I think that's what we're striving for. I think what happens with little children is it's like they say to us, okay, you're the adults, y'all handle this. And it's not their huge problem to deal with as a child alone. And so when we talk about needing a facility, we're in 1,600 square feet. It is really important that that team works together. So what we want to do is, when that team is working together, they need space to work together. So they need space for the next family to come in. We have lots of times that they're coming in before work hours, working through their lunch hour, staying after hours, because we only have one room to interview the kids in. We have times that we have kids that don't speak the language, that are speaking Spanish. And so we have an interviewer who speaks Spanish and can talk to those little children. And so it's really important, and I think that our team has been incredibly successful, and we have this incredible momentum. We're probably prosecuting more cases successfully in Rutherford County than anywhere else in the state. And I'm proud of our team, but we're at a point where we really can't grow because we're limited by that facility.
Mayor Carr,
You actually didn't answer my question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ask again.
What happens to the million if you don't raise $7 million?
That's a good question.
It'll stay in the bank until we reach our goal, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, or whatever. We're going to, or we'll spend it to get whatever we can buy with what we have. But it will be going to this facility.
It would be unethical for it to not go to this facility. It would be unethical. And so you're looking at two of the most ethical people I know in this community. It would be unethical for it not to go where we say it's going. And when it comes to grant funding, we have received millions of dollars of grant funding down through the years. We have over $1 million a year of grant funding that we're accessing from outside of the county. And we have always been in compliance with everything we've ever done with our grant funding. More questions?
Mayor Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sharon, 2 questions. You talked about grant funding. Would the proposed new facility that hopefully this contribution would facilitate, would that open up the door for additional grant funding that you currently are unable to apply for? Would that be a possibility? I know many times with what Chairman Harris is doing with the opioid board and some other things, facilities are a consideration when applying for a grant. Would that be the case here as well?
Right now, we want to go after more grant funding for mental health. We have nowhere to put a therapist in our building. So there's grant funding that we can't go after because we have no room to put those employees in our building.
And so essentially the answer would be yes. That opens
Absolutely.
up the opportunity for additional application for grant funds. Is that right?
We have a fabulous grant writer. She wrote $3.5 million worth of grants in the last 10 months. We're still looking for money.
So the other question I have, which is my apologies, Mr. Boer, but it has really nothing to do directly with the funding of the capital project, but as you were sharing the story, I think what General Jones was saying a minute ago about whether you know it or not, everybody in this room has been touched by somebody who has seen a child, you just may not have known it, that was horribly sexually abused. My question is to those counselors at the advocacy center, because they're dealing with this trauma on a day-to-day basis, are they getting counseling?
Let me explain. One of the things with the Child Advocacy Center, when we hire an employee, we talk about self-care. And it is one of the most important things we do, because what they see is the ugliest part of ugly every day. And so if a staff person needs counseling, they go to counseling. But one of the things we really do is support each other, so that if one of my forensic interviewers gets a horrific case, and the hard ones are when they come in and they look like your granddaughter, or they look like your son, or those are the hard ones. And when they come in, if they come in and they play baseball, that's going to be hard for me, because I had little baseball players. But with those cases, so if our forensic interviewer gets a bad one, then she's talking to the other forensic interviewer, because they're all social workers. And so she's talking to the other forensic interviewer and kind of venting what she just heard. And so we do a lot around self-care and making sure people are taking care of themselves, because it is a high burnout job. And I have people, I've been there 25 years. Jennifer Darnell has been with us for, I think it'll be 20 years, and our accountant, our forensic interviewers, our people have been with us for years, and it's because they're dedicated to helping children and families. And it's a very rewarding thing to know that you stopped a child from being harmed. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
My question is to Michael. Michael, if we funded this and we funded it with that they would get the $1 million, but it had to be once they reached their goal. He said that could take 3 years, that could take 1 year. Would that be something the budget we had to continue to vote each year, or would that be something that would stay and roll over each year and not have to have this conversation anymore?
So that really depends on how this committee and the commission would phrase the motion as part of that. So I can give you a couple options. One, this committee could vote to send whatever amount of money you wanted to them and trust that they would hold it. Two, the other option is this committee could vote to commit this money. In the general fund, we could commit it and hold it and set it aside, and it would roll indefinitely until we gave it to them. We could hold the money if you wanted. The only time that would require any type of second vote is they would come back to us and say, hey, we're ready for our check, we found our building. And I would go, okay, I'll bring an amendment to this committee to put it in an expense line, and we'd cut the check then. But to answer your question, we could set some money aside here and hold it in the county coffers until they came for it, and this committee and commission could commit that money if they wished.
Vice Chairman Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. Have you identified any buildings to renovate or yet, or?
Absolutely. We've been looking for a couple of years. We've looked at property that's for sale for a long time, and we found one. General Weitzel went with me when we went and looked at it recently, and it's less money than what we budgeted. It has a motivated seller, and it needs, the whole first floor when you walk in is completely renovated. We would have to move one wall. And the whole downstairs would need to be gutted and completely renovated. But we could move in and then gut it and renovate it. And we really like that one.
How many square feet is that?
10,000 square feet. I think it's 10,000 square feet. That would meet our needs.
And your goal, from what I've heard, is to raise your $7 million within 3 years?
Yes, that's what we would prefer to do. And if we can do it sooner, construction costs are only going up. So the sooner we can do it, the better. And I'm going to tell you, Bill Weitzel and Kristen Demas are dynamos. They're doing a fabulous job.
And so this money would actually buy the building and renovate it?
It would be part of buying this building, because this building, we haven't negotiated the price. Right now, it's $2.45 million, but we know they want to sell.
Okay, I'm going to throw a motion out just for discussion, is that we commit $1 million and disperse $500,000 over the course of 2 years.
How many years?
2.
2 years.
In other words, commit $1 million and then $500,000 to be dispersed over the course of 2 years.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
I'd like to make an amendment. I would like to go with what Commissioner Gooch says, but I would like to instruct the finance director to put the remaining balance of the money into an interest-bearing account so that the county would be able to get some kind of comeback on this. Is that something we can do?
Can I speak to that?
Please do, and I was going to ask you, can you take that as part of your motion?
I think that obviously the money is going to end up in some kind of an interest-bearing account, but as a little extra for them, it could be in their bank account, drawing a little bit of interest for them to help them out a little bit more.
Well, before we discuss that, I need a second on that amendment. Do I hear a second to make this? Okay, that's withdrawn. Chairman Phillips, you're recognized.
Did we have a second?
Not on the amendment. We have a motion and a second.
And a second. Okay. Let me just say, as I get older, for some goofy reason, I get more emotional. Watching St. Jude's Children's Hospital commercials on TV, I can't hardly do it anymore. When you talk about animal cruelty, watching those commercials, I can't hardly do it anymore. For those of us that went on the 11th of April and toured that facility and talked to the employees and the emotions that they had when it come to children's advocacy and standing up for kids, I just couldn't hardly stand being in there. I'm not saying that this is something that we have to do, but I am saying that this is something that we need to do. This money stays in our county and helps the most vulnerable people in our county, and it's just something that we need to do. It's our responsibility, and it's something that we need to do. If you toured that facility, you saw the conditions that those employees had to work in, and it's unacceptable, and we need to correct that. And anyway, we as a commission can support that, is absolutely, positively needed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I would appreciate your support of this need that the county has. And if I've overstated that, Mr. Chairman, you were there and you saw what I saw. If I've overstated that, I apologize, but I don't think that I did.
I concur. I don't think you overstated it at all. We actually, I'm on the opioid board, and we asked if we could use some of the opioid funds and not have to come here. Unfortunately, the way that those funds are dispersed, we are not able to spend them for this use. So they are looking and they are asking. I'm kind of like Commissioner Phillips there. You want the soft part of me is the children, and that's what's important to me. Any discussion from our committee members? Any questions? Commissioner Irvin.
I appreciate the passion and I appreciate the need. But right after this went out, I had several folks call and say, is the commission now giving out $1 million grants? I don't, you know, it's one of these things. How many times has this occurred in the past? And I've only been here a couple cycles. So I would appreciate understanding how many times has there been a $1 million contribution to a capital campaign, and if we give this one, are we then opening the door for many more really good causes that I can name a whole bunch, because several of the very prominent folks in the philanthropic community called me almost the same day and said, how can I sign up? How can my organization become a part of this? Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. I'm not questioning the need or the passion. I appreciate them both. Okay, but I'm saying we have a budget that's pretty darn tight. We represent all the taxpayers of Rutherford County. So I have a question. How many times have we done it, and what's the special impetus beyond what we've heard, which I respect, for this $1 million grant?
I want to recognize Mayor Carr first. And
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got 3 points I want to make if I can remember them. Number one, I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Irvin, but I will take exception to the fact that dealing with children who've been traumatized by sexual abuse, there's some kind of moral equivalency to some other type of capital campaign. I can't think, quite honestly, of a greater need to address in our community than the sexual assault and abuse of an innocent child. That's number one. Number two, General Jones has said that the county does have some statutory obligation here. Now, it is vague in statute, but there is nonetheless a statutory obligation. And maybe General Jones could speak to that in greater detail, but you referenced that in your opening remarks, I believe.
Yes, sir. There is a requirement set out by the Tennessee State Legislature that there be a Children's Advocacy Center in each judicial jurisdiction of the state. As frequently happens, the legislature does not always attach funding to its requirements. So we have a requirement here. It is part of Tennessee state law. Sadly, it is not a funded requirement.
And we have, in my opinion, gentlemen, a moral responsibility to do more than the minimum requirement. Third and finally, when Sharon DeBoer and General Weitzel and General Jones came to see me several months ago making this request, I worked it in to the mayor's recommendation for a balanced budget. So this is a part of a balanced budget that I propose to the county commission in the form of mayor's recommendation. And I join Chairman Phillips in imploring you to accept this. We don't get requests like this often. Will this potentially open up the box? Yes. But I would remind this body and the larger body of the commission that things are not always morally equivalent. And this is not one of those things. I cannot think of something we can do that would have a greater impact on the lives of the most innocent and vulnerable in our community than the sexual assault of little children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman P.
You're recognized.
What is your recommendation, Mayor Carr?
The mayor's recommendation was for a $1 million contribution.
So throw this out. Is there a motion on the floor?
There's a motion and a second on the floor to.
I'm going to throw this out there anyway. This pretty well touches everybody's heart in here, and we spend money in large amounts all the time for different needs and wants and whatnot. But what if the county partnered with these people and bought the building and leased it back to them for a minimum, get them further on down the road, rather than just $1 million? Would that be a possibility?
Please use the microphone on.
I think it would have to go to our board of directors, but we're open to anything at this point, if you want to know the truth, because we've outgrown this building, and we've got to do something. But they're on the board, so I'm wondering what they think.
Please use the microphone, guys.
I apologize. I have a bad habit of that. Most people tell me I'm loud enough without a microphone. It's something I would certainly want to consider. I mean, that would be some largesse from the county and very much appreciated. It would have to be voted on by the full board of the Child's Advocacy Center. But that is along the lines of what we're wanting to do, which is to find a building, renovate that building, and then do business in that building.
Chairman P., can I ask a question on that line, please?
Can I say one thing, though? The one thing that would draw back is Christy Houston Foundation is not going to fund something that the Child Advocacy Center doesn't own. And we're hoping to get $1.5 million from them, which would go a long way toward finishing out that basement. And
Mayor Carr.
so that's a stipulation for us we'd have to wrestle with.
What I would like to follow up on Commissioner Piercy's idea, if I could. Would it be possible, Michael, for us to set aside $1 million and then and research this portion of that idea to exhaust the viability of it before we actually turn the money over, so we have it set aside and it's contingent on those kinds of discussions either coming to fruition or not coming to fruition? Is that a possibility, Michael? I don't know how we would structure that.
The full commission can always set aside committed fund balance money. It's done so in the past, so it could do that for an indefinite period of time if it wished.
Mr. Chairman, so help me out here on trying to address Commissioner Piercy. You're saying that the building costs $2.5 million, 2.45. So what are you proposing, Commissioner Piercy? You're saying that we buy this building for 2.4 and then set up a lease to them, and how many years, and what are we trying to get $1.5 million back? Or I'm kind of confused as how you want to set this up.
First thing I would do would want to be in on the negotiations of how much we pay for the building, because she said the people were very concerned about selling it, so I would not even entertain their first price. And if we're going to help this situation, just like donating the money to it, if we lease the building back to them for a minimum, I'd say it would be sufficient. You can't charge a full rate price trying to recover your investment and pretend you're helping at all. That would be my plan.
Let me recenter us here for a minute. We do have a motion and a second on the floor Now, we can, this is part of the discussion, of course, what Commissioner Piercy is suggesting, but I concur with the mayor. This is something we could probably go ahead and do, as Michael said. If you vote up or down on this motion that's on the floor, and then if we desire, we can go ahead and have discussions with this group about leasing and purchasing. Go ahead.
Okay, based upon some comments that I've heard from the mayor and others, I think I would like to change my motion to go ahead and set aside $1 million and to help me, Michael, to disperse that when requested or when needed from the Advocacy Center. Now, we're going to go ahead and commit it and then have it set aside, and when they ready to use it, then we can disperse it at that time.
Is that okay with the second? Commissioner Sereno, are you okay with that change? Have you got that noted, Michael?
Working on it now. So I'm going to clarify back to you to make sure we've got it correct up here. So you wish to commit $1 million for the future use of a capital campaign by Child Advocacy Center once they have reached their ready to buy building. They will come back to us and we will disperse that money. Is that correct?
Yes.
They reach what point, I'm sorry?
Ready to purchase their building, reach their other fundraising goals.
Well, either to use it to purchase it or to renovate whatever their need is when they request it.
And I'll just clarify, so that motion is not going to affect this year's budget. So there will be no amendment to this year's budget.
Okay, you have a...
It might if we raise the money.
If you get it done in the next 30 days, then yes, it will. Or it'll affect...
Well, it wouldn't be in this current...
But it'll affect, but it'll need an amendment at that point. So just to clarify for the committee, we will move, if this motion were to pass, we will move $1 million out of unassigned fund balance to a committed fund balance. Once they reach their capital campaign or are ready to come back, we will then amend this in at whatever point that time is, whether it's a month or 6 months. We'll amend this in as an appropriation and issue the check at that point.
In transparency, let me say one thing too. We do have a banker that may loan us money to take a mortgage out on that building at 0 interest. And so that may happen too. So it might be sooner.
We will be ready. As the only time constraint we're going to have from the county, just as a clarification for the committee, would be it will go back through our full commission as an appropriation. The money will already be set aside, so it'll take us about 2 weeks, depending on when you fall into that our time frame, for us to be able to issue something to you, if this motion were to pass.
Any more questions from anyone on the committee? Mayor Carr,
I want to follow up with the process. So when those funds are ready to be released, basically they would come back to the budget committee and then that would go to the full commission. Is that correct, Michael?
Essentially, it's going to require a budget amendment.
Right.
Yes.
And that's one thing. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes. Congratulations, guys. All right. At this time, yes.
Commissioners, I wish to thank you very much. I very much appreciate your time, your consideration, and your help. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone that's going to represent the Smyrna Senior Center? I noticed, okay, come on up. Sorry.
So could I clarify one thing, Mr. Chairman? Michael, on that last one, was that a reduction in the...
No, on the previous night, on May 21st, I believe the motion was made by Commissioner Gooch. That was actually pulled out of the budget at that time for them to come back and present. So it didn't affect this budget at all. The summary sheet that you got tonight, it was already pulled out.
Okay, so it's already out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, if you would tell us your name and what you do.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Fran Dunn. I am the Executive Director at the Senior Activity Center of Smyrna. We did submit a request that kind of got lost in the shuffle for $20,000 towards our capital campaign. I have provided a packet for each of you to look at and follow along. I'd also like to recognize Patsy Brown is with me. Patsy started the center in 1971 as a young girl, and she's still around. And then Steve Steele is here, and they both serve as co-chairs of our capital campaign called Building on the Legacy, because we have a 54-year legacy that we celebrate every day because of all the successes and great things that we do and offer at the center. So I have provided you with a picture of our current facility. It was built in 1977-79, and this is a really interesting story, and I want to share this briefly with you because Rutherford County played such an important part in the building that we're in now. The center started at the Methodist Church in Smyrna. They met there for a few years, and then they moved into a little house on Front Street. And then one day, County Commissioner Rucker Rakes approached Patsy Brown and said, "How would you like to have land for a senior center?" And Patsy's like, "Well, gee, wouldn't that be great, but how on earth are we going to do that? How will we pay for it? Where will we build it?" Well, the Old Rock School campus was sitting there vacant. The school had burned. And he said, "I think we can get you about 1.5 acres of land to build a senior center on." Okay, great. How are we going to build it? Well, his son was Bud Rakes, who was principal at Smyrna High for many, many years. And they had a building and trades class. Did you go? 55, yes. So anyway, they had a building and trades class, and they would build houses, these high school students. So Principal Rakes worked with Patsy and Commissioner Rakes, and over 2 school years, they built what I call phase 1 of our center. And in 1979, in July, they moved into our current building completely debt-free, thanks to donations from local businesses, churches, and individuals. As I said, we sit on 1.5 acres, and after 2 additions and a couple of remodels, we currently have 4,400 square feet with 50 parking spaces on our property. Our current challenge is that we now have 790 plus members in our building with a capacity for only 200 people based on the fire codes. And we still only have 50 parking spaces. So I have provided you with a site plan of a new facility that would be built on 5.65 acres donated to us by the town of Smyrna. It sits on the corner of Sam Ridley Parkway and Mason Tucker Drive, catty-cornered across from the YMCA and directly across from the new Stewart's Landing development that's being built in Smyrna. The new building would have 13,500 square feet, parking for 200 vehicles, and room for future expansion. I've included a copy of a floor plan that shows how it would be divided out. Currently, we don't have room for a lot of activities that people come in and ask for. We have a very limited space for physical activities, so we are including an exercise room. We are included a room for ping pong tables and pool tables, a larger meeting area and grand hall, and then larger activity rooms for all the activities that we currently offer. And I've provided a couple of conceptual drawings for you. We have been in our campaign for probably about 2 years. We were in a silent phase for a while. We completed a feasibility study, but the interesting point is in 2022, we did a needs analysis that projected that by 2030, we would have 750 members. It's 2025, and we have 790 plus members. So the need for a new building is great. Expand where we are, we just don't have the space. You can see from the aerial view, we're just landlocked in the space that we have. So that's why we're going to build a completely new building. Currently, we have raised $2.2 million of our $6 million goal. And our most immediate need is to raise $800,000 by the end of this year so that we can approach the Christy Houston Foundation for their spring application period. We've had conversations with Ann Davis. She's excited about a good project on the north end of the county. So we're just very excited about this. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any discussion from the committee? Questions? Not hearing any, I will entertain a motion.
I so moved.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second to approve $20,000 for the Smyrna Senior Center capital project. Is that correct, Michael?
And this will amend line item 101, 56,900, 316.
If it passes.
Yes. But if you could add that to your motion, please.
Any discussion from the committee? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all so very much. We're most grateful.
Okay, Michael, do we have any more that you are aware of that we can go ahead and call up? If not, I'm going to open the floor to.
That's all the nonprofits we had left.
Okay. Any commissioner at this time that wants to make any changes to what we've looked at? I recognize Commissioner Harris.
Thank you, Chairman P. I got two that I want to revisit. First one is Mayor Carr did a presentation the other night in property management talking about growth, and he did a good job. However, it's about time we're proactive instead of reactive in county capital projects. But I want to go a little step further and help him out here. I'm wanting to put $50,000 in county buildings, 51800, line 399, other contracted service for a capacity, usage, and condition study. I believe that we need professionals to help us in this, and it would be a good tool. This money will be approved by the property management. If property management wants to do this study, we'll have the money in there for it. They can use it if they want to or not, but it has to be for this study. And then it'll come to budget, and then we would fund it. But I think this would help us tell us our capacity, tell us the condition of our buildings, also tell us the usage, if we're using it the right way, and it would help out making those decisions on capital projects. So my motion is to add account 51800, which is county buildings, $50,000 for a capital usage and condition, line 399, contracted services, which bring the balance of capital building to $6,248,558.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Piercy.
Again, what they're going to do.
Well, it's kind of like when they did the ghosting bill. They're going to look at all of our buildings and see, are we at capacity? For instance, like the jail. Are we at, is our buildings in good conditions? Because that's going to make a decision. If we got a building that's not in good condition, then we got to look at a capital project. So one of those things is that, as well as usage. Are we using the building to the full capacity that it needs to be? So this is we did this study with the Goldstein building, and it helped us out a lot.
Do they study it to the point to see if the building warrants the money being spent on it?
Absolutely.
So, like the 200,000 that was approved to be spent on the Kittrell Gymnasium the other night, would they look at that?
Yes. All county buildings.
I second the motion.
I have a motion second. Mayor Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Harris. That's an outstanding idea, and I regret that I didn't think of it. That truly is I mean that is an outstanding idea, because what we're trying to do, in the presentation last night to property management, I brought forth my suggestions and idea to the committee about what I thought my priorities were, but I was soliciting, as Commissioner Irvin was there, I was trying to solicit the feedback from property management. And so I think a study to determine the feasibility, usability, and longevity of our existing infrastructure would be extremely important in prioritizing what we're going to do going forward. The question I have is, where is this $50,000 going to be spent from? Is it coming from Mr. Dodd, Adam Dodd's department? Is that where it would be facilitated from, Michael?
So,
because I'm in support of it. I just want to know where it's going.
So that's where Chairman Harris's motion was.
Okay.
Can you read me back? You wanted that to be a certain total. Can you? It was a $6 million number. Can you read that again?
I want to add $50,000 to account 51800 under county buildings, line 399, which would bring the total to $6,248,558.
So, we got that, and then I will also tell you of one other pot of money that has some money left over if you didn't want to affect this year's budget. I wasn't asked, but sorry, there is about $53,000 left over from the old archive edition renovation that we would need to spend already in our capital projects fund. So that would potentially be available too, and not affect this year's budget if y'all wanted me to look into that.
Chairman Harris, would you object to moving that and using all that money instead? Based on Mr. Smith's recommendation.
My only thing, Mayor Carr, is I don't necessarily know how much that study will cost. I mean, I feel like that $50,000 is something that is in range, but I didn't want to go over. Yes, I have no problem with that. So what do we need to do?
I'm just throwing out there as an option.
Take my motion back?
I think if you would like to use that pot, I think if you could just amend your motion to say, direct the mayor's office and the county maintenance department to direct that study and utilize the remaining of the archive edition money, which is $53,236, if that's okay.
Fine with it.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Irvin, on your second?
Yes.
And your third?
We need to spend that money anyways. It's got a time frame, so I just thought I would.
Any more discussion on this proposal? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. You said you had two things.
My second one is, me and Mayor Carr, we have had a discussion with the new contract of the lobbyists, and we made, I thought, very good grounds, and I thought we came up with a reconstruction of the contract. So we agreed that the $100,000 cost of the lobbyists would be put into the county commission budget under contracted services, and deduct $100,000 from the mayor's budget, 51300, line 399.
Okay, I have a motion to move $100,000 from the mayor's budget to the county commission budget?
Yes.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. Hearing none, call roll.
Give us 1 second. Did you get that?
Okay. Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Chairman Harris, you got anything else?
I'll come back, please.
Okay. Vice Chairman Gooch.
Thank you. So I've got a motion, and it's in two parts, so just bear with me. And this is a result of some feedback that I've gotten from quite a few commissioners. On line item 51300-103, this is in the county mayor's budget, assistance. I want to reduce the amount that will reflect the chief of staff pay rate at 66% of the mayor's pay. And then my second part is to send to the steering committee for them to consider a more consistent policy on that pay rate as far as advanced degrees or licenses are concerned.
I got it. Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion, any questions for Vice Chairman Gooch on his motion?
He was talking, I'm going to have to read that back.
All right.
We're taking minutes fast and furious up here.
Or again, slower.
If I'd like to just read it back to you, I think I got it. And I got to add a line item to it. You want to reduce line item 51-300-103 to reflect the mayor's chief of staff at 66%, and also send a resolution to steering. And that's where I trailed off. You wanted to send something to steering?
Okay, to send to steering a request to develop a more consistent policy as it relates to the chief of staff's pay, particularly with advanced degrees or certain licenses.
And I'm going to have to read a number here in a second then.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add.
Recognize. Go ahead while he's looking his numbers up.
As a result of the conversation that we had, I think Tuesday before last, relating to the chief of staff's position, I've asked our county attorney to put together a resolution that would define what that pay should be. And I think the resolution that Commissioner Gooch has alluded to, this would serve as that resolution, and without objection, I can give that resolution to the chairman of the steering committee to consider as they go forward. So they don't have to start from scratch, but I've got something that is already laid out that they can discuss.
That's okay with the commissioner that made the motion, but let's see where this goes, and Michael, you ready?
So since this involves changing a budget number, I want to read it for the minutes here. After the change of the reduction of 100,000, this would be a reduction of $34,572. That would bring the mayor's new budget total to $1,490,849.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
You're recognized, Mayor.
So when we considered the mayor's budget, and I guess I want to direct this question to you and to Chairman Harris, when we considered the mayor's budget, this came out without a vote, but with the understanding that it was going to be reconsidered with a resolution going to steering. I guess, I guess I don't understand what the process is, since I thought that process was already established. I think I'm not up to speed on something here.
My understanding, I'll put it that way, and you can correct me, Commissioner, is that the motion itself changes what we voted on the other night from 80% to 66%. Is that correct, Michael? I got the numbers right.
That's what yes.
That's the first part of the motion. And then the second part would change the way we would go forward in the future as far as directing the pay for the chief of staff. The way I understand the chief of staff, and of course we were here when it happened, budget established that pay would be 66% of the mayor's pay. And as the mayor's pay increases, by population, the state does that increase, then that would also bring up that chief of staff's pay. Now, what Commissioner Gooch has got is basically sending a resolution that Chairman Phillips is alluding to steering, and let them look at the possibility of changing that structure on how we're going to base that pay. You mentioned something about the qualifications, and
yes, it would include advanced degrees.
So if you had somebody that was an attorney, a bookkeeper, or CPA, something like that, it's what you're talking about. But anyway, that would be up to the steering committee to decide at that time. As it is, budget was set up to actually set the pay for the chief of staff. And I think that's reflected back in the minutes that we had, that budget could change that. If this passes and goes to steering, and steering decides to adopt a new resolution as far as this pay goes, then that would change after this. Now, this vote tonight would change the pay from 80 to 66 and forward a resolution to steering. I got you right? Go ahead, you're recognized.
Does that go to the next budget cycle?
Oh, you're talking about if steering makes a change when steering? You would still have time. No, we would have, you would still have time to change this budget year if you wanted. If steering makes a change, we would still have time to change it.
So just so I'm clear, this resolution and whatever pay the steering committee determines has to be adopted by both the budget committee and the steering committee before it proceeds to the full commission. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Mine as well, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to be clear.
So if we're, just to clarify, if it goes to steering, if steering were to make a change, it would come back to budget for funding, to fund that change.
If there was a difference.
If there was. Now, I will go ahead and give you some dates, Chairman Harris. You can make that change on June 5th at the budget meeting, but I think the steering committee got moved. Then you could also make it on June 18th, or you could make it on Monday the 23rd. But June 18th would be the time to implement any changes from steering would be June 18th on Wednesday, June 18th.
So effectively, whatever budget decides tonight, steering could potentially change regardless of what it is, and there's an opportunity for budget to rehear and vote on that change recommended by steering. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I think we've got two different situations going on. The original motion that Commissioner Gooch made was to set the chief of staff's salary at 66%.
That's correct.
Okay.
But he added forwarding, so that's the rest of it. Any further discussion? Hear none, call roll.
Can you tell us who the second was to start that?
Irving. No, well, excuse me a second. It was Commissioner Sereno.
Sereno was second, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Sereno,
Excuse me.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries. I do have a question on that. The money the difference in that money there, will that stay in the mayor's budget, or will that be moved out of his budget?
That motion just reduced it. That's why I read that new total for the mayor's budget.
So that, okay.
It reduced
so
the mayor's
motion
budget
reduced.
by $34,572.
Okay.
I can read the new total again if for the committee if you'd like.
That's
Okay.
good. I just wanted clarification on that. Any other commissioners have a motion they want to make? And I'll recognize Commissioner Irving, and I'll come back to you, Commissioner Harris.
Glad to defer if you, either way.
Sure, I'll take it. I want to discuss the mayor's budget on a third assistant. I'd like to discuss this because I don't feel that we need a third assistant. I would like him to talk about it, but I feel like we don't need that, and I'll tell you why. The great Miss Vicki Taylor, if y'all remember, some of y'all don't remember her, but she died, and we were in probably a bad time as far as being busy. Ted Beatty stepped up, and so my point is that some of the stuff was brought up that if we have sickness and stuff like that, I think we're going to be fine. As far as Rachel and Carla on doing the minutes at night, they get paid overtime, so that's not something that affects their pay or their hours that is volunteered by them. So my motion is that I would like to decrease the mayor's budget $63,628 for his request for a third assistant. And I'm open to that for any discussion.
What was the amount?
Motion is to my motion is to deduct the mayor's budget $63,628, which covers his assistant or his request for a third assistant.
Okay, you've heard a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
Question
Recognize.
for Mr. Harris. How long has it been since there was a third assistant in that office?
Well, I mean, we kind of felt like when the chief of staff position was there, that's the third assistant.
I'm talking about in the office part out front.
I have no idea, not since my 7 years, and we still ain't had any problems.
That would have been when Carolyn.
Have we seen a situation in which we were behind on anything or the work?
That would have, to answer his question, that would have been when Carolyn Holt retired, which was, I don't know how many years ago that was.
It's been over 8 years now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
8 years.
I'd say it's been at least that. I'm thinking, and I may be off on that a little bit, but it is when she retired and about the same time as Mr. Jones retired, so. But approximately 8 years.
Reason I asked, I knew it had been quite a while because I can remember 3 being in there when I first come on the commission floor. And our population has really increased in that amount of time. And the 2 girls that's in there now, they work very hard, especially if one's out sick or if one's got an issue and there's just one there in that office. I really think the office warrants 3 people there. Heavier offices in smaller places.
Well, I mean, we had, like I said, I brought up Miss Taylor when she died. Ted Beatty brought over someone. We took care. We was able to get through that, and that was a prolonged deal. So I don't feel that. And I mean, you have to ask the mayor this. I mean, do we feel that our Carla and Rachel overworked? And I don't believe they are. I think they are good at what they do, and I feel like Eric, his job was to help the mayor with day-to-day activities, operations, and that's part of his job when we created this. So that's why I feel like we don't need a third assistant.
Sonia, you recognize you.
She actually has been gone since November 22nd of 2013. So it's been a minute since she's been there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You're recognized.
I disagree with Chairman Harris. I don't know how many of you know this today, but we had one of our executive assistants that was out today and on an emergency. And when we have one office person in the office handling everything, it is an incredible burden. Even more importantly, if we have one person out on vacation for more than 2 and 3 days, it becomes even more difficult on an order of magnitude. And I will tell you that if you want to burn your people out, continue to put a workload on them that they can no longer manage. And I will defer to Mr. Smith on how valuable, in particular, Carla Hill is with regard to the finance department, and how important Rachel is to the county commission. And so I'm trying to give these two ladies some help that everybody understands performs a phenomenal job. And you're right, Chairman Harris, they do get it right, and they do it on time, and they do it with a smile. And that's what I'm trying to maintain. And the county is growing, and every other department has sought, requested, and received additional help as the workload of a county that's almost 400,000 people has grown. So I think this is a reasonable request, and I'm asking for this body to consider and approve it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, any more discussion? Chairman Phillips.
This is not meant to bring up any objection or anything. It's just a question. If we hired a third person, would the county commission minutes or the person who actually attended the meetings and took minutes still be on overtime? Or would this new person eliminate that overtime situation?
It potentially could limit the overtime or remove the overtime. That's something I would probably want to find out from Michael, how that transactionally worked. I haven't thought about that question, Chairman Phillips, but it's a relevant question. And so I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that, in particular, Rachel and Carla have the support they need, so when one of them goes on vacation or one of them is out on sick or something like that, the other person is not completely overwhelmed.
I just wanted to try to get it clear in my mind. Is if we hired an additional person, could we eliminate that overtime? Could that person actually be working, in essence, the night shift to cover the county commission responsibility?
I don't see any reason why we couldn't structure it that way. It's certainly something worth considering.
Any other discussion or questions? Sandra, you want to?
I was just going to say, we have flex schedules in other departments, so there would be nothing that would prohibit, instead of working 8 to 4:30 on a day that, like today, that they could come in later in the day and work later that evening. That would just have to be part of the job description. The person coming in would know that would be part of their job duties.
Well, we can do that now, if I'm not mistaken, kind of a flex schedule as needed, but I understand what you're saying. Good point. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, let's call roll on this.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? No. Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Commissioner Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer a motion to add to Michael's department, I guess that's accounting and budget, and I'll have to defer to you to account numbers or whether it's a new one or how exactly it's handled. An internal auditor for the county that would report as envisioned to Michael with a dotted line to us as a budget committee. And I propose that money be set aside in the budget for total compensation after discussions with several of $150,000. I'll mention that we do not have to hire this person right away, but I did want to put something in the budget. The goal is basically there's quite a few tasks. In this budget cycle in particular, I've noticed a fair amount of difficulty in getting information. This internal auditor could assist there with getting information, compiling information, doing analysis, doing a fair amount of work that, candidly, Michael doesn't, and his team don't have to do right now. And so that could be anything from audits of various tax accounts, and other amounts that are owed to the county, audits of allocations of money from the state. I am told that there are some pretty good discrepancies in those calculations that could result in a significant amount of money, additional money coming into the coffers if they were actually put together. The person could do, a review of financial systems, things along those lines. How could things be done more efficiently, basically? They could also provide, after discussions with Michael, relieve some of the efforts that are required in terms of a liaison with the comptroller's office, things along those lines. And I'm not proposing that we task this line item or this new position with those immediately, but we at least set aside in the budget total comp $150,000 in Michael's department for a new position, so that we can at least begin the process of putting together a job description, again reporting to Michael initially, and dotted line to this committee, so that we would have the resources and the ability to get reports and things along those lines. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion and be happy to answer any questions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
In 2 seconds. Discussion.
I do have one. Commissioner Irvin, would this audit also pertain to the schools? Or Michael, do we even have the authority to do that?
Yes is the short answer. It would be the county-wide departments and would include the schools, yes.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Mr. Chair, my question would be, is this a hired position, or is it just hiring a third party to come in and do a one-time audit?
This would be an employee of the county who would basically come on board in Michael's department as a new county position, and it would not be an independent contractor or anything along those lines. It would be a new employee of the county. I think that's the best. We save the most money that way, candidly.
And Director Smith, what would this person do differently than, say, I know we got the comptrollers auditing our books and processes and things like that. What would this person do differently, or is this a request from you, or?
This is not a request for me. However, I mean, most counties our size do have an internal auditor, so just because it's not a request for me doesn't mean I don't support it. I'll put it that way. But I think if I'm understanding what Commissioner Zerver is asking for is an internal auditor to audit all aspects of the county, including the schools, including any offices. So, I mean, that could be anything from doing kind of what the comptroller's office does for us, or doing some specialized audits. I think if you wanted to audit some purchasing, if you wanted to audit some bids, you could audit the internal processes of various departments, that kind of stuff. We do some auditing now. It's limited to mainly the payable side, the purchasing side, but I think what you're talking about is expanding that scope. I mean, you could go even to as far as, we hire outside people right now for hotel motel tax audits. that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you could expand it to that at some point if you wanted. We do hire some outside people for that, CPA firms. But I think they would take direction. We have an audit committee as well, so I would, in most places that have an internal auditor, will take some direction from the audit committee or from a budget committee or something like that if there's an issue that they want looked into. But they can audit anything from time. If we have somebody that, sometimes they work well with like an HR office. If we think somebody's stealing time, they can do those types of things. It would be something that we could not do quickly. We'd have to work on some type of job description. We'd have to get a game plan. It would have to be something that was thought out and almost brought back to this job description, or brought back to this committee at some point, I would think.
Well, you mentioned that other counties similar to our size have these. Sonia, could you reach out to them and get the job requirements from those?
Sonia, I believe Sumner, Williamson, most all the school departments do as well. You got them? Hamilton, yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Discussion? Myself, I'm kind of leery of, hiring more personnel. The more I hear about this, so I think that we try this person out and we don't see results, then I think that we certainly can save some money ourselves by cutting that position if we don't see results from it. So, I would be open to trying it. I'm not wanting to rush into anything either, so I appreciate your comments there. Any further discussion from the committee? That's a good question.
I couldn't hear, sorry.
Said who would do the hiring for this position?
I think presumably it would be Michael, and we would have input. That would be, I think, the ideal. The person would report to Michael initially. We pretty much have to do it that way at this point.
So, a couple things. Without a Private Act change, if that person were to come under the finance office, then the way the Private Act's written, that person would be hired and fired, and I guess by myself in the finance office, and then ultimately I report obviously to this body and the commission. So, but that's how the Private Act's structured now.
Sonia, you're recognized.
I don't think anything would prevent us, though, like when we hire a director or assistant director, it's not uncommon for us to bring in the chair of the committee that position is under, or somebody from that committee to be part of the interview selection. And I mean, you could even bring in somebody from the audit committee if you wanted to be part of the interview process.
So that sounds like that would be reasonable. And again, if this passes, that's something I think steering could help us with too. But I know when we were searching for a replacement for our finance director, it fell on the budget committee to do those interviews. Sorry about that. I would think that the budget committee would want some input on an auditor personally. So, any other discussion?
Can I make that amendment then? I'd like to make an amendment to where the budget committee will be the one that will hire.
You can't, that is limited by the private, that's what I'm saying, our Private Act right now limits that. So that would.
It's on you then.
We would provide input. The budget committee would provide input, but it would basically be Michael's hire at this point.
What I stated was that a member of the budget committee could be part of the interview process with Michael if they chose to. Obviously, if you have more than one budget committee, then it makes it sunshine law. So you would only want one committee member to be a part of that,
But I think what he's saying is, so right now the Private Act limits who works for the commission is very explicit. So if the budget committee wanted to solely create a new department and hire this person, even though I would have no objection, I'm just saying it would require a private act change. And obviously, I don't think we have time for that in the next month. So if you add it to the finance office, the way the private act is currently written, it falls under the finance office. But obviously, I'm not going to object to having any of y'all sit in there. I'm just saying, but you couldn't explicitly say it's hired and fired by the budget committee because the private act would prevent that.
Yeah, that's too much. Never mind.
Any further discussion? Chairman Phillips.
I've got a concern about this discussion coming up at pretty much the 11th hour. I'm not saying it doesn't have a lot of merit, but I am saying it requires a lot more discussion than we can have in a 10-minute period of time. My suggestion would be for this position to be thoroughly vetted and determined, and maybe hire at mid-year, something like that, if that's at all possible. But to make a decision to hire someone without it being thoroughly vetted here at this late hour in the game, I just don't think it's appropriate. It's my 2 cents.
I agree with your comments about, having this position vetted and working everything out. That's why I appreciate what Commissioner Irvin had to say about putting the money, appropriating the money, and then looking and working out all the kinks of the job hiring. That's the way that's my way of putting it. Yeah.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
So all this does is set aside the money, but it may be January or February that this person is hired, or whenever you deem that appropriate.
The other option is you could put some money aside and not approve a new position and direct Sonia to work on a job description that she brings back to this body.
Well,
Did your motion create a new position or just set aside money?
Yeah, it created a new position, reporting to Michael, so we comply with the private act. It sets aside $150,000 total comp, okay, max, basically. Probably be less, okay. It contemplates setting up the job description through Michael, Sonia, with our consultation and, advice, et cetera. Then we just go through the process. If that takes a month, great. If it takes 5 months, great. We will have started the process to, have someone who can take a look at things and take, candidly, some of the pressure off of Michael and his team, so that when we have a request the day before the budget's due, then, we'll have hopefully asked the question before, but we'll have someone to go to that can pull the data, hopefully, and move forward with it. They can also, the position may very well make money for us in terms of some of the allocations, some of the tax audits. This is what I've heard. I'm not an expert in county finance, but I'm just saying this. That's what I've heard, that a position like this we could tailor it along those lines. So, and in addition to doing some of the other tasks. It seems, to me, it's something that a county of this size candidly has needed for a while, having observed a number of processes. But I'm just one commissioner.
Any further discussion, questions from the committee? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Commissioners, anyone else? Michael, the next thing would be to review any other changes, give you a few minutes to.
Mr. Chairman, I thought, is it the appropriate time to bring up a possible adjustment to Michael's compensation?
If any changes that you want to make, yes, it would be, if that's something you'd like to do.
Okay. Yes, I would propose an adjustment to Michael's compensation. I believe there was been a couple emails come around And I'll propose that it be an adjustment to the, Sonia, help me out, 66th? Okay, to the 66th percentile, or whatever the class level is, and that's my understanding, base compensation. Okay, base compensation, 66th class, with appropriate benefits, et cetera, that go along with that, and make that motion. And I probably left out a lot of stuff.
So you're basically giving us a range, or are we giving a certain amount?
No, I'm proposing the pay grade, one pay grade.
Tanya, you're going to have to tell me what that number is, or Michael.
No, wait, I hear Sonia, sorry. I thought Sonia said it.
I didn't hear it.
Based on the table, if we, with a 2% lift in the step, it'd be 216.
216,000. Okay, I have a motion to increase the finance director's compensation to 216,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second. Discussion. Sonia, what is his pay at this time? I want to say around 160, 70, somewhere in there. It's more.
What was your question?
Ask how much your pay is.
It's a little over 190.
190?
A little over that.
Okay.
Currently, it's 190,651.
Got your $190,651.
But is it being, and I know it's difficult to talk about, but is it, with the current budget, is it raised to somewhere around 204?
That's correct.
And your rationale, Commissioner, just because he's overworked, underpaid?
I think we have a rare treasure here, candidly. Michael has done an excellent job and I believe deserves additional funds based on that excellent performance, not only with this budget, but also prior budgets that I've been involved in. I think he's been extremely helpful in doing the very best he can with putting together the additional numbers and analysis that is required by a county of this size. We are extremely fortunate to have him. That's the basic rationale.
Irvin, is your motion to raise him to the 66th table 66, and or can you give a amount? Like, does he have to give that amount? Can there be a lower amount?
I mean, I believe the private act says that the commission can set the salary based on the way it's written. I mean, we're talking about pay grades to keep him on the table so that, you know, it's incremental, but I think the way the private act is written is the salary is set by the budget committee through the normal budget processes.
Any other?
I agree with Commissioner Irving. I mean, I think Michael's absolutely invaluable, but can I do a amendment to where that make that figure 208?
I'll agree to amend my motion.
What about the second? Did the second agree to the amendment?
Well,
Yeah.
that's really, really close to a pay grade 65. For being Sonia, it's nice that I stay on the table. That has nothing to do with that. Commissioner Harris's motion, Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Sonia's always preferred me be on the
Pay
table.
grade 65 would be 211,976. Yes. What number are you showing? Go with his number, 209. We'll have to recalculate this.
So your amendment, Commissioner Irvin,
Would be to a pay grade 65.
well, that's where the 66 level was 216. Is that correct, Michael? Is that what you're saying too? Since you had a discrepancy there, I want to be clear on that.
I show a pay grade 66 at 216. I show a pay grade 65 at 209,918. I show a pay grade 64 at 203,804.
Okay.
Is that what you have, Sonia?
So the motion is for 66%. I have a second. Is there any other discussion? You made a motion, but I don't think I had a second on that.
Yeah.
Withdraw. No, he's withdrawn his motion. And he seconded the original motion from Commissioner Irvin. Any further discussion?
Just to be clear, which number are we on right now? I agreed to Commissioner Harris's, and then I think it was withdrawn.
It was the 216 is what's on the floor. And Sonia, repeat that number, or Michael, you can repeat it.
So the motion we have for the minutes up here is to move the finance director's salary to a pay grade 66. The number I have for a pay grade 66 is 216,216.
So the motion as it stands right now is to move his compensation to $216,216. Any questions on that motion? Call roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes, but I better get some pizza out of this.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Committee, do you have any more changes you'd like to make at this time? Not. We have decided that we would discuss the compensation for public safety presentation. Michael, do we need to do that at this time, or go ahead and look at what we'll be posting for publication?
So that's up to the will of this committee. We've made quite a few changes tonight, so it's going to take me a minute to recap those. But I think for this committee, if you would like any pay grade changes to go for publication, now would be the time. If you don't want that to go to publication and want to change that at a later date, you can move that to the complete end of the agenda if you want to, but it's really up to this committee.
Well, here's a suggestion, and I'm open from our committee, but why don't you go ahead and start putting the numbers together on what we've done tonight, and while he's doing that or they're doing that, Sonia and Commissioner Beverly, I hope you've had a chance to talk a little bit. Have you got some suggestions on how we can, on the compensation that Commissioner Beverly had suggested? I know that's kind of putting you out on a limb here, but any discussion that's pertinent that we need to be aware of tonight if we decide to make a decision tonight, or whether to put this off to one of our later meetings?
I mean, I don't have obviously, if we go to implement the salaries that he's recommended, I'm going to have to do some recalculations, and so I can't give you that right off the top of my head. We had already projected to move, I think the mayor's recommendation was to move patrol to a 25 and to detention to a pay grade 20 and fire to a 24. And we reviewed the advanced EMTs, not the paramedics, but we raised the advanced EMTs up to a 24. So that's in the original recommendation. If we are going to try to achieve the base salaries that Mr. Beverly is suggesting, that would have to be done there's a couple of ways it could be done. A lift to the table. At one point in time, I'd have to look at the cost with the assistance and some suggestions of some of our public safety departments. There was a new table created, the cost to make that work. So there's several areas, but what I can tell, most of them are going to be several $1 million more, just with my quick numbers to implement.
Let me ask you something, and I know it's going to take you a lot of time and hours to put some of this stuff together. Would you have time to report back to us by the 5th at our regular meeting on these suggestions?
If it's just those positions that's recommended, of course, I'm going to have to touch the ones in higher chain of command to make that work. But I mean, I will give it my best. That's all I can tell you. I don't know.
We've run you through the ringer in the past on this. That's why I know how difficult it is getting that information back to us. Of course, it's up to this committee what we want to do. My suggestion would be to let her look at these numbers, crunch them, and get them back to us, give us some time to digest them. But having said that, I think that some of the things that he brought up, for instance, the longevity pay, that's something we could address tonight. Michael could probably tell us how that's going to hit us on our bottom dollar here as far as where we're tippy-toeing close to having to have a tax increase, and that's certainly a direction I'm not planning on going on at this time. But Michael, if we did the longevity pay, how would that affect our bottom line on this budget as proposed? I know you're still
checking away to see where we are revenue expense-wise for tonight. But I mean,
another 800,000.
I mean, that answer is going to be the same as far as you'd have a couple options, right? I mean, one, we could raise taxes for it. I wouldn't recommend. Two, we could put 800,000 and go into the deficit. Or three, we could move expenditures and revenues around. But I don't think $800,000 would warrant any type of tax increase, but it would probably be best to put that in conjunction with the entire option there. But
I wanted to throw that out there to just let the committee decide.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really would like to have the mayor's question answered as far as what is our attrition rate compared to county general, compared to other entities, counties and cities, because I'm really curious. And I think that's the driving force, is to keep people here, but I don't know how many people are leaving to determine, is this really a problem or not? And so I would like something like that to happen as far as
Donna,
having
you want to address that? And Mayor, if you want to jump in, please do.
So I don't have I have the last 5 years turnover rate overall for those departments.
I'm not asking you to dig around, but I think ultimately I would like those questions answered. I mean, if you got something on top of your head there.
Have it? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So for 2024, the county as a whole lost 253 positions. If we're looking at the 5-year range, which is I think is what Mr. Beverly was talking about, from entry level to 5 years, it was 81% of the total county left within that first 5 years. So of the 253 that left, 207 of them were in that grouping. If we look for so from a day to 5 years, 207 people, of the 253 that left, 207 of them left during that time span, which was 81% of the people who left. If we look only at ambulance, fire, and the sheriff's office, of that same group, it was 32% overall, for 32 versus the 81%. So of the 107 that was lost from those departments, 10, 8, 15, it's like 95 people. Of the 107, 95 left within the first 5 years. So that was for 2024.
Sonia, can you tell us why they left? I mean, you said they left,
Yep.
but did they get terminated? Did they die? Did they retire? I mean, this is what I was frustrated with earlier. We talked about attrition, and there wasn't a definition for attrition. And I just want to make sure that if we're trying to solve the problem, we've defined the problem, and we didn't define the problem. So for those who voluntarily left for another position, do we have that number?
Yes.
That's the number I want. That's attrition that we're trying to solve for, if it is indeed a problem. We have no business trying to solve for attrition because somebody retired, yet that's included in the attrition number. Or we don't have any business trying to solve for attrition because somebody passed away, or for some medical reason. So I would like an answer to the question, what is the attrition rate in Rutherford County as it relates to the other municipalities that Commissioner Beverly brought up? What is that attrition rate for those who voluntarily left for another job in reasonable proximity to Rutherford County?
Okay, so based on everyone who left in 2024, the 253 individuals, career 24 or 13% of them left for a career change. 16 or 9% left because they moved out of the area. 41 or 23% left for another job. 31 or 17% left for personal reasons. 29 or 16% left who quit without notice, basically job abandonment, or just quit their job and didn't give a notice. And 6 of those, or 3.39%, decided they wanted to stay at home. Those are kind of the main ones. And if I break it down to just the ambulance, sheriff's office, and fire, for those who left voluntarily at the ambulance service, 19 of those, or 7.58%, left voluntarily. The sheriff, 50 or 19.96 left voluntarily. And of the fire department, 6 or 2.4% left voluntarily. Now, of the voluntarily, for that, I didn't break them out by the exact thing, but some of them were retired, which would be a voluntary. For those at the ambulance who left for another job, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 left for another job of the 19, so almost 50% of them left for another job who left. For the sheriff's office, it would be like it was 9 of the 50 who left voluntarily left for a career change or another job. For the fire department, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 6 left for another job. Now, I will say that some of the people, it said voluntary and they didn't give us a reason, so of the ones who gave us a reason, that's what they left for. That was for last year.
Sonia, I'm going to repeat what I said before, is I don't think I could digest this myself in this shorter time. I want to at least put this off to the 5th myself. Do I hear any comments from my committee as far as this discussion on pay changes goes at this time? Vice Chairman, you're recognized.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this out. I believe that this is a big project that was kind of put on us, I don't want to say the last minute, but very close to the finish line. I think that we have so many questions and very few answers right now, and I believe that to come up with the answers is going to take more, it's going to be like months instead of days. And I know that we've given pay raises in after 6 months or started in January. I'm just going to throw this out, if you get a second, is to keep the pay as it is and readdress this in November. To give us time to get all the information we need for a possible adjustment in January.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
A motion, yes.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and repeat this for our secretary. We're going to delay this for, you said 6 months?
Well, okay, to keep the pay raises as they currently are and to address this particular situation in a manner that we can come up with a solid decision by January, midway through the year.
Is that okay with your second, Mr. Serino? Okay. I have a motion and a second on the floor to table this pay increase at this time and look at it in January. Discussion.
Well, just to clarify, not really to look at it in January, but to look at it in plenty of time prior to January so we can make have all of our questions answered, all the research done, to make a decision by January. So we wouldn't start looking at it in January. It may be October, maybe November, so that we can get there with all the information we need.
Any questions from the committee? Anyone want to make a suggestion? Hearing none, I do have a motion and a second on the floor, and we're going to ask for a roll call vote on this.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, that gets us back to tonight's agenda. Michael, have you got some totals for us for publication?
I did until my laptop just died. I've got the tax rate total for sure.
Please, looking at that, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I want to make sure I understand. I'm still going to go ahead and calculate all this information to be ready to have this conversation and with multiple scenarios, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're just going to have a little more than 3 or 4 days to do it. Michael, you going to be a few minutes more? If you are, we're
Well,
going to take
we can go ahead and do the tax rate, property tax rate by phone if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So in your book sheet that, I've got 2 ways to look at it, but one is a new operation sheet we put in there tonight. It's going to show the the total tax rate has not changed. There's not a proposed increase, but there is a proposed movement of pennies. I will read the tax rate by fund on the new proposed tax rate. And that should be, it'll say 2025 because that's the tax year. It says adopted, but that's just a placeholder on that sheet. But it would be county general getting .7336 pennies, ambulance service fund getting .0794 pennies, highway fund with no change getting .0072 pennies, GPS Fund 141 would get .5627 pennies, educational capital projects would get .1090 pennies, and general debt service would get .3843 pennies for a total tax rate of $1.8762. So that would be a no tax increase. You can see the movement of pennies there as reflected. Now, the movement of pennies there has already been reflected in all the budgets we've went over as we've been going over them over the last couple weeks.
Any questions for Michael on the county tax rate by funds?
There's also in your book as well, under that tab 1, there's also an amount that the penny generates and how much it generates for each fund. If you're interested in that, that's also there. And just as a reminder, there's the penny amount for the schools and a penny amount for the county, and that's due to the sharing with Murfreesboro City Schools.
Mark, are you going to need 2 separate motions on this, aren't you?
Just one for the tax rate for A, and then we'll need a separate one for B in a second.
Right. Okay, I have a motion to accept the property tax rate by fund as presented, and a second. Discussion. Call roll.
Commissioner Moreno? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, revenue and expenditures by fund.
It's loading. Give me one more second. Thanks, Sonia, for the battery booster. So also, back to the statement of operations sheet that's in your notebook that I'm holding up here, the only thing that has changed is going to be, and you should have gotten a new one. If you did not get a new one from tonight, let us know. But the only thing that changed tonight would be the expenditures of the county general fund. And if you remember it's almost been 2 weeks now, last time we met, we increased I told you we would have some offsetting increase of revenue of about $200,000. So tonight when you got your sheet, there was an additional $200,000, a little over $200,000 of revenue that's on there. That's already incorporated to what was on the sheet handed out tonight. And then I will try to read the new expenditures if this will load. Would the committee like me to read every fund's expenditures? Is that how you want me to do it, or?
Please.
Okay. While this is loading, I'm going to go ahead and read all of the other funds. So starting at fund, 116, that would be revenues of $12,692,473 and appropriations of the same. Ambulance Service Fund 118 would be $25,536,757 and appropriations of the same. The Fund 119, Industrial Economic Development Fund, revenues would be $129,427 and appropriations would be $697,832. As a reminder, with that fund, that has an adjustment over there in the adjustments column. The Special Purpose DEA Fund 121 would have revenues of $5,000, appropriations of $40,000. The Drug Control Fund 122 would have estimated revenues of $493,000 and appropriations of $1,015,000. The Highway Fund would have estimated revenues of $16,031,117 and appropriations would be $15,932,422. The General Purpose School Fund would have revenues of $573,385,000 $1,825, and appropriations of $581,343.45. Central Cafeteria Fund 143 would have estimated revenues of $26,844,250, and appropriations of $33,503,092. Educational Capital Projects Fund would have estimated revenues of $19,344,516, and appropriations of the same. And our General Debt Service Fund would have estimated revenues of $69,953, or $953,083, and appropriations of $69,362,029. And my computer has died. The revenues for the County General Fund are $186,255,693. We did not change that tonight. I can go charge my computer if you would like for a few minutes, or appropriations increased tonight by almost $200,000, approximately $200,000. Maybe. So it's up to the will of the committee. I can go get and read you the number, or I can just go over the changes tonight, but it did go up by right around $200,000. It's up to the will of the committee.
This will be for publication, so we'll need a hard number. What's the will of the committee? You want to wait on this computer to charge up, or let him do the number when I see a nodding. Let's go charge that computer so we got a hard number. We're going to take a 5-minute break while he's doing that, guys. Make sure Vice Chairman Gooch is wide awake over there. There you go. Michael, you got your numbers together, I assume.
Mm-hmm. So the last fund remaining is the general fund. But before I read that expenditure total, I'd like to recap the changes we made tonight to make sure I've got everything down that y'all voted on correctly, that we didn't miss anything. So I'll kind of go through these slowly. Y'all, raise your hand, holler at me if I miss something. So first thing we did tonight is we added $40,000 for Amityville Fire Department. That increased the fire department's budget. The next thing we did is we added $20,000 for the nonprofit for Smyrna Senior Citizen Center. It didn't affect this budget, but I'll go ahead and read it, that we will commit $1 million for the Child Advocacy Center in our committed fund balance. We also moved, it didn't affect the total, but we moved $100,000 from the mayor's budget to the county commission's budget for the lobbyist contract. We reduced the mayor's assistance line item for the chief of staff salary and sent that resolution to steering. That was a reduction of $34,572. We reduced an admin 2 position. That was a reduction of $63,628. We added $150,000 in total for total comp for a potential internal auditor. We changed the finance director's pay scale to a grade 66. And those are the 6 changes that I have tonight.
Any questions from the committee on those changes?
Okay. So the new appropriations total for the county general fund will be $187,813,283. So $187,813,283. Now I'm also going to go ahead because I'll get a question. That is a deficit of $1,557,590. Now also remind the committee that a little over $900,000 of that is due to the opioid money that we added, I believe, on the 21st. And that's the money we'll receive this year and we'll spend next year.
That's got your totals.
That's all of them.
All right, we'll need a motion to accept the revenue and expenditures by fund. Do I hear a motion or discussion?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
Our revenue and expenditures by fund. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. I missed that one, so. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, guys. Michael, have you got anything else?
No, I just like to remind the committee, June 5th is our regular meeting. So we will have several items that are reported there, but obviously you can make any changes to the budget at that time. And then also as a reminder, June 17th at 7 p.m. is going to be our public hearing. That'll be in here at 7 p.m. That's a different time, a lot later than our regular meetings that start at 5:30. And then Wednesday, the 18th, will be when we pass the tax levy and appropriations resolution and send that to the full commission for the 23rd, just as a reminder for the committee.
And just so the public is assured, there is no proposed tax increase this year.
That's correct.
There being no other business, we're adjourned.